So check. Make sure this audio is good because can you guys do a little mic check? Grant, Hamza, can you hear you guys okay?
Check.
Hey, 1% Nation, welcome back to 1% Engineer Live. Ooh, I think this is actually the 13th live stream, and I need to change the overlay here, but it's okay. Let me change this real quick. Welcome back to the 1% Engineer Show, where we empower young engineers to rise to the top 1% of their career. Tonight we have a couple special guests here. We have Grant Waldy, somebody who I worked with in the engineering industry. Hey, Grant, coming at you from Denver, a Canadian engineer, structural engineer, bridge expert. Probably, to be honest with you, one of the more senior bridge experts that I've ever met. So structural engineering questions, civil engineering questions, hope we get those tonight. And as always, Hamza Waheed, who's our director of operations on the team. We are trying to do resume and LinkedIn profile submissions for you guys tonight. We haven't had anybody fill out the form. So look at the links below, and you'll be able to actually submit either your LinkedIn profile or your resume. We can take a look at that. Otherwise, drop your questions right into the chat. Where are you guys from? Manny, what's good? Thank you so much for having that meeting with us the other day. Really glad that you are potentially doing some stuff with us. And Robert, who else is out there? Where are you guys from? What type of engineer do you want to be? Comment below in the chat and let us know what questions you have and what you're trying to figure out right now. Grant, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? What people love to hear is like, how did you choose? How did you know bridge engineering?
What's up, Sean?
And that sort of thing. Sean Mazer is here. What's up, Sean? Sean Mazer is that's the Sean that I introduced you to on an email the other day, Grant. So there he is.
Oh, okay.
It's cool that he gets
Hello,
to see
Sean.
you in person now. So Grant, why don't we pass it right over to you and then to Hamza before we get some questions in the chat. And so go ahead, Grant.
So how did I get interested in engineering? That's what you want to know?
Yeah, so you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then the core thing too is like, how did you know that you were going to be a structural engineer? You have this illustrious career in bridge engineering, bridge inspection, and things like this. But the main thing that we help people with is choosing their niche in engineering, honestly. And you have such a cool, exciting one. So as you introduce yourself, if you could blend that in, that would be fantastic. Take it away, Grant.
So, I mean, just going back to when I was probably in kindergarten, I loved playing with Lego, and my dad told me an engineer is an adult that plays with Lego, and I thought that sounds like just a perfect job. And as I got older, I wanted to do other things. I wanted to be a police officer and a firefighter and a superhero and all those other things that every child wants to do. But as you get older, I found I don't really like this thing, I don't really like that thing. But engineering, man, I loved the marriage of practical problems and theoretical problems. And, all throughout high school, I was doing woodworking and metalwork and electronics and tinkering with little things. So I knew engineering was what I was going to do. I wasn't certain what type of engineering. So I honestly just did some Googling, and I saw that civil engineering is kind of like a big catch-all. It's kind of one of the biggest ones. There's a lot of job opportunities, and let's get into civil. And then as soon as I started doing civil, I found structural really interesting. I had jobs in construction, and this all kind of goes together. I like building things, and it's like let's get a job as a structural engineer. And I thought the coolest structural engineering job would probably be bridges. And I happened to get a job for a giant company that designs giant bridges. And I started working there. And one hiccup in my plan was that after a few months of doing really intense design, I was like, man, I don't want to do 40 years of really intense design, because there were some guys that sat beside me in cubicles, and they've been doing math for 40 straight years. I was like, I need to somehow get outside or do something a little bit more. I still want to be in bridges, but I want to do something a little bit more interesting. And then this guy named Stan, he called me up, and he worked in a different office, and he said, do you want to inspect bridges? And I was like, well, I didn't even realize that's a job. And he said, yeah, you put on rock climbing gear and you climb around bridges. And I'm like, that's awesome. Really? You get paid to do that? So that kind of married, my love of hiking and the outdoors and getting to see hundreds, if not thousands of different bridges, because I wouldn't want to be stuck on one bridge for decades, as some people are. They're stuck on one big bridge. And so that's kind of where I'm at with my career now. I'm a bridge inspector, and I just travel. I was saying to Jake before we started the live stream, 1 year I spent 26 weeks on the road. And did about 50 flights. I'm not doing that anymore. Now I'm doing about 8 weeks on the road, which is a lot more my speed, and just really loving all the different cool inspections that I get to go on.
Yeah, that's so cool. People love to know the backstories of how people end up in the niches that they do because engineering is such a funny thing, regardless of what you study and sort of the beginning. Because you also have a really like cool path to where you are. You did the Camosun or Camosa. You did the whole Camosun, which was that was a 2-year program, right? So you technically are a success story of like a 2+3, where you started off with a smaller, like trade school, tech school, or like an engineering certificate with that wouldn't have been an ABET accredited school. You moved to Vancouver, you go to UBC, you study civil engineering. You probably at that point didn't really have some sort of indication that you're going to end up doing what you do now. Now you live in America, you're traveling all over the place. You've been to Africa. It's so cool to hear the stories of people who have awesome, fun careers like you, because a lot of engineers make a lot of money, okay, and they freaking hate their job, and that's not you. And you also are such a smart guy. Like Grant, you and I were like business partners at one point, flying drones and driving all over the place, building side portfolios, and you just have all of these things that you've already done. You're day trading now. You told us earlier that you took a stock portfolio in the 40,000s and you basically doubled it this year, which is unbelievably awesome. So it's really cool to hear those backstories. Thanks so much. So guys, what we're trying to do here, before I introduce Hamza Waheed, who's been helping me for almost 4 years, go ahead, Manny Kwan, check that link again. If you want your resume reviewed by us three or your LinkedIn profile reviewed by us three, try to click on the Google form in the links below or in the pinned comment, and we will take a look at your resume. We will take a look at your LinkedIn profile, because that's one thing that we think we can help you with this year. This time of year, everybody is trying to apply to internships for the summer. There's still people who graduated this year trying to get jobs. So go ahead and check that out. And we're still having issues. So Manny, let me know if it's working. What's up, Rob Torres? Thanks so much. He's working on an aerospace engineering project. So Hamza Waheed has been working with me for almost 4 years. Thank you so much for being here again, Hamza. And one thing I want to say about Hamza, he's our director of operations. We have a team of 10 to 12 people helping out on different things. Rob Torres is working on a project with us. Manny has been chatting with us a little bit more seriously about things. Thank you for being here in all the live streams, Manny. You are awesome. But Hamza showed up and emailed me one day 3.5 years ago, and said, hey, I want to help you. What can I do? And I was like, I don't know. What do you want to do? And he had this idea of a project to write a blog about biomedical engineering, and he wrote like 15 to 20 articles, and I didn't even really have a place to put the articles, but he showed his ambition. He reached out, and it didn't matter what I said, but he was like, I want to help you. And he's just been arriving with his ambition and sort of eagerness to do more and show up more and build this relationship with me. And we still never met each other face to face. I know we're trying to figure out that visit that you were talking about earlier this fall, Hamza, but guys, just like you have found out, Manny, quick tip is that you can show your perseverance and your commitment to somebody else who is a professor or an engineering professional that you've met at a job fair just by showing up and offering to help, whether they know how to actually incorporate your support or not, which, to be honest with you, Hamza, I didn't know what to do with you. I was like, okay, bro, let's figure it out. And so that's one quick tip before we get into regular questions. Make sure you guys submit your links. Hamza, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and say anything else about your engineering journey to this date? I mean, you already know the questions that we get quite a bit. Hamza, take it away.
I'm just a 21-year-old mechanical engineering student at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Been to multiple places around the world through my dad, and that's all I'd like to say.
Perfect. How you've been on this journey already? I'm going to fire the mic right back to you, Hamza. How did you know that you wanted to become a mechanical engineer? You had this biomedical engineering blog and interest, and you've kind of made sure that you didn't quite go down such a narrow niche. By the way, there's only 19,000 biomedical engineers employed in the country. So why don't you let people know, it's such a humble intro, Hamza. You can add a little bit more if you want. But how did you know that you wanted to be a mechanical engineer? How did you pick the right major? It's like the biggest thing that we help people with, as all of you know. If you're trying, guys, 1% Nation, if you're in the chat right now and you're having trouble figuring out the major that you want, comment in the chat and let us know what you're struggling with. How can we answer your questions about major support? And if you have, or major selection, if you have any other questions, drop it in the chat, because we don't have a big queue of questions, so drop it in the chat. And guys, hit the like button, because this video is going to arrive in more people's news feeds. Sometimes we get up to 50 people watching this thing at once. And there's already been, let's see, 108 people who have stopped by. They stay, they come, and they go. It always feels like, right now we got 23 people. It feels like, hey, there's just 23 people the whole time. But people come and go, and they're constantly cycling in and out. So if you just arrived, submit your resume, submit your LinkedIn profile in the link in the chat, and we will take a look at that. Otherwise, Hamza, how did you know that mechanical engineering was the right choice for you?
To be honest with you, I just needed to complete my degree. So there's only 2 schools in North Carolina that I could realistically go to, which was NC State or UNC for biomedical engineering. And I didn't get into either of them. But UNC Charlotte had a concentration in biomedical. So I said, well, I got to complete my degree. So I'm just going to go to UNC Charlotte and I'm just going to study mechanical. And that was that.
Perfect. Yeah, mechanical engineering is definitely the sort of number one aspect within the things that people think they're interested in, because I think it's the most broad sort of default engineering. Grant, do you have anything else that would be a tip? Just being an engineer, and you and I are both in our early 30s, I'm sure you have given advice for major selection. What tips would you have before we get into some Q&A and some resume review and some LinkedIn things? Grant, I'm so glad you're here, Grant Waldy. Honestly, this is awesome. This is really cool. What tips would you have for somebody who knows they're interested in STEM, they know they're better at math, but they're just not sure what is the avenue for them? What tips do you have for engineers out there?
I think, one thing that people shouldn't do is they try to say, well, what one pays the most? And I think that's a horrible attitude, because they all pay well. And like you said at the beginning, if you're making a ton of money but you hate what you're doing, that's awful. So, looking into what an actual day-to-day looks like is the most important thing to find. Some people want to be stuck in front of a computer all day long. I mean, you work with people, Jake, who their whole life is 6 monitors, and that's what they love. And they love it, and they're into it. And if that's what you love and that's what you're into, then there's certain engineering fields that are like that. For me, that wasn't me. I like being outside. I like doing lots of different projects. I like working on a project that takes a couple weeks, and then you move on to a different project. And being on the same project for months and months and months, I couldn't stand that. So when it comes to finding what you want to major in, you really need to talk to someone who is a mechanical engineer and say, well, what is your day-to-day life like? And if they describe something that sounds like heaven, well, then you should become a mechanical engineer. But if they say something that's like, I don't want to do that all day long, well, then you shouldn't do that. And a lot of people think that mechanical engineers are out designing Formula One cars. Some of them are, but some of them aren't. You need to actually find out what an actual mechanical engineer does and an actual computer engineer does. And then say, well, not only is that the degree I want to specialize in, that's the actual kind of job that I want to specialize in. So it really comes down to what is the 9-to-5 job for the next 40 years.
Very cool. Yeah, that is exactly right. Robert Angular, thank you so much for submitting a resume. We got one. I'm going to potentially wait here for a couple of minutes until we get some more submissions. Guys, we lost power over here. I'm living in the northeast of the United States, and we had a pretty crushing snowstorm. We lost power until 2 or 3 p.m., and then I'm leaving for Maine for 2 or 3 weeks for the holidays, and everything was a scramble. Everything's behind. I wanted to make the stream such that you guys could see the resume. I'm a little bit terrified to sort of edit the stream layout. As this even says 1% Engineer Live 12, this is actually the 13th stream of the year, which is hilarious to me. I'm going to have to go back and try to figure out some sort of editing earlier. But yeah, thanks for that, Grant. We're going to get right into this resume by you, Robert Aguilar. Thank you so much. What type of questions do we have in the chat? I don't know if we're able to do the question transfer. Don't have a whole lot of questions. Yeah, that's so good. So the thing for me, I really like what Grant took, what he said about sort of analyzing careers and being a little bit realistic. Of the 300,000, over 300,000 mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and civil engineering jobs in America, we kind of just use that for a benchmark for the amount of engineering out there. There's a lot of really cool positions out there, and there's a lot of also really mundane, repetitive, they call it the HVAC trap for mechanical engineers. And this is the part of the reason why, first of all, Grant, I admire your career direction so much. And also for me, the reason that I did not go down into bridge engineering, because I was terrified that it was going to be cookie cutter and repetitive and design. And you already said that designing bridges is just, oh my goodness, trying to find a way to fall asleep even faster, and you cannot, right?
Yeah.
And so what tips do you have, Grant, with such a unique, fun career? People, they want to work on Formula One cars. They want to work on, bionics, which is the biomedical or the mechanical or the electrical engineering avenue where you can work on prosthetic arms and robotic things for people. There's a lot of really cool careers out there. But do you have any tips for sort of taking your career and your direction, even for you students out there? Keep in mind, 53% of this community is 18 to 24, meaning they're not actually working yet. They're still trying to get that dream job and get those internships. And I think that the internships that you get as a young engineer really can start to shift the direction that you're going to have as you enter the workforce. And so many engineers aren't sure what they want to do, but even if they know what they want to do, it's like, how do I get there? So what tips do you have, Grant, for making sure that you have this sort of fun direction and kind of like taking control of your own life and making sure that you don't have a boring job, you don't stagnate, you kind of get what you want? What tips, because you really do have a cool story with that. What tips do you have for young people out there, Grant?
So I would say pivoting with diversity is kind of the thing that a lot of people need to do that they're not doing. If you get a job out of college, which is great, and you start working for a boss who's fun to be around, that's great. And if you start doing the exact same thing for the next 4 years, you're not growing your resume, you're not growing your skill set. It might be nice that you have a boss that you get along with, but I would rather have a boss I didn't get along with, that I was doing a bunch of different things, because one thing builds on the next thing. So especially when you work for a company that's got maybe 100 engineers on the floor, you might have tens of thousands of people across the entire corporation, but your office is your office of who you can actually work with. And if you have 10 different lead engineers you can work with one of them for a few months, learn how to do that section of design, and then work with another one for a few months, and then start to do a little bit of management, and then work with another one for a few months. I see some people, they've been doing the same thing for 20 years. It's like, bro, you don't have 20 years of experience. You have 1 year of experience 20 times over. So definitely a diversity of skills, and one thing building on the next thing, pivoting your skill set, is how you're going to get to the place you want to be in. And Jake, you've done this, because remember, you started with drones, and that went in a direction, and you're like, well, but then you did some camera stuff, and then you did some website stuff, and like all these things built. And then you ended up on Shark Tank, like all, in honesty, all of those things came together to get you to the place where you're at. So you don't go from nothing to Shark Tank. You have to build one thing, and you have failures and you have setbacks. And if you're not doing failures, you're obviously not pushing it hard enough. You got to try in one direction. You got to have a boss say, no, we don't do it that way. Okay, you take a little step back and you do it in a different direction. Pivoting with diversity is what you got to do if you want to advance your career.
I love that. And Ray makes me think right away that just you using these sound bites of pivoting with diversity, I want to talk about your website and your book. Remind me what it is so I can put it right in the chat here, Grant, so people can read. Grant's an author. Grant's got a book, guys, which is all about how you can essentially get an MBA. Right, there it is. Boom, there's the book, which is basically how you can get an MBA without going to get an MBA, which is super duper awesome. I don't know if you can actually drop the website into the chat, but I think I'll be able to.
I can type it in. I'll type it in right now.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if other people can click on it because I'm not a administrator, but it's self-taughtmba.com.
Yeah.
And it's just this idea that I personally didn't want to spend $100,000 and take 2 years off school to get an MBA. So instead, I just read hundreds of books. And basically what I've done is I've kind of summarized them into my own book. And I also have the list on that website. So yeah, www.selftaughtmba.com. It's a list of a lot of books that Jake has on his bookshelf there. I see the exact same books sitting on his, and I've gone through them and a little bit of highlights. But basically it's either, here's the list to read. And if you don't want to read hundreds of books, of course, I'm biased because I wrote it myself, but I've kind of summarized them a lot into my book, which is Random Advice for Business and Life, available on Amazon.
Very cool. Thanks for that, Grant. Yeah, I think we're going to end up doing a video. We've been talking more about this video. I know I need to get moving on the planning for that, but we'll definitely incorporate your book into that video. Unfortunately, Hamza, I know you were really excited to do something a little different for this stream that's more than Q&A, but because of this power outage and I'm crammed for time, we're traveling 10 hours tomorrow, I wasn't able to do the overlay. So even if we do these resume reviews online, you guys won't be able to see it, and I don't think it's the same experience, so we might end up holding off for that for the future. But either way, I'm going to reply to you. Thank you about mentioning Shark Tank, Grant, and all of our drone work together. Really quickly, sidebar, and then Robert Angular, if you are still on here, go ahead and drop it in the chat, because we're not going to review your resume if you're gone. By the way, nice 3.89 GPA, love that. But I guess it's almost like too good. Like, did you join any clubs or did you party? Like, Grant, I love that you found your own unique ways to party, but all engineers need to party, like, come on, guys. Like, but I'll never forget, Grant, that time that you and I were scheming about how we could learn from Jesse's subcontracted company thing where you had that boat, right? Yeah, Jesse Dow, what was his last name?
Jesse Weeb?
Weeb, yeah. Well, I don't know. I knew it was short. Yeah.
Daniel Weeb. That's the D. It's Jesse Daniel Weeb. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then we went to our. I had that. I don't remember if you and I were in the room with Matthias together, kind of pitching the idea, and he was super supportive. And then I think it was just me and Ken alone, and I was like, hey, so we're gonna do this drone thing. And then I told him, I was transparent about it, and I said, hey, Ken, this is my boss when I was like 27 years old, guys. We were basically, Grant and I, what we had done, okay? This was when the early drones were out. It was only the Phantom 2 with like, not even
Phantom 1 and 2, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't even the GoPro, the nice Hero 4 GoPro camera at the time. It was like the crappy stock built-in camera, and we wanted to start a little business where we could essentially do construction inspection and bridge inspection, because again, Grant was a bridge inspector, and we went to Grant and I, he was on the structural team, I was on the traffic and the forecasting and the transportation team, and I went to my boss and I was like, hey, what do you think about this drone thing? Like, we bought a drone and we've been taking photos, and we would like sneak into people's properties and essentially like take photos of these mansions in Vancouver. I remember that one we did right next to Shaq and Oprah's mansion in Vancouver. And then people would be outside and these people were looking at us and we were like, oh snap, are we going to get the cops called on us and that sort of thing? Fortunately, nobody commits any crimes in Canada, so nobody's worried about anything. And we went to Ken Curry. Yeah, I'll say your name on stream. I hope somebody shares this video with you.
Jake, I still work there, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, we love you, Ken. I mean, honestly, Ken, like, we never had any huge problem. It was just a sense that I wanted to be a little bit more innovative. And as you should be, an engineering manager just needs to make sure they're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And he wasn't sure and, provided a little resistance. But this is the story, okay? We'll backtrack a little bit for you, Grant. This is the story. So we went to my boss at the time, and, Grant's supervisor was super supportive, and that was awesome. We went to mine, and I was like, okay, so we want to do this drone thing. We want to try to start this side project and this and that. And I was like, and by the way, we're going to be subcontracting this thing as another brand. Like, is that okay? And I don't think he took us seriously. I don't think he knew what it meant. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And then after we did it, we went out, and I was really nervous that we were going to crash or whatever. We took some photos, and it was real simple, And then when I gave him the report, he was like, wait, you guys did what? And I was like, oh my goodness, like, you said it, okay. And he had a big deal. He made a big deal about like the subcontracting thing. And then I remember him being like, hey, corporate knows all about this. And I got like terrified. I took the website down. I thought I was going to get fired, to be honest, for like a couple months. But yeah, that was really cool. Anyway, how this ties back into engineering and what Grant was talking about, and how I think you guys can actually choose a fun career and have awesome direction for your life is you got to be pushing side projects and things that you're passionate about and you're interested in, and finding ways to blend them into your engineering student and your engineering engineering young career such that you can use them to amplify your actual career, right? So, and Grant has done this really well. He day trades now, and I'm sure that the things that you know by trading stocks have helped out your engineering career, the way you more analytically look at things and you forecast, and you love hiking and traveling, and you've been able to jet set all over the place to look at bridges. And so, guys, don't think that you have to just have these compartmentalization attitudes about your career and your life and your passions and things like that. So thanks for mentioning those things, Grant.
So Jake, I wrote that whole story in my book. I changed around some of the facts and stuff, and I made things anonymous. But I basically said if you want to get ahead, you do need to be pushing the boundaries. It's a lot easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. But you got to know where the line is. You don't want to do something crazy. Another tip on top of that is you might explain something to someone, and they might say, yeah, sounds good, and they didn't really get it. So you really got it. You got to have a paper trail. You got to have emails of things, and this isn't just internal. This is external. So that's another great tip. Make sure if you think someone doesn't understand what you're talking about, they probably don't understand what you're talking about. So you got to make sure you've laid it out, and then just the final point and piece of advice here: when you want to make a big change, there's two ways to do it. One, you can do everything behind the scenes and then present this big change. And that's kind of what you did with the drone thing. You figured everything out. I remember you were soldering these drones, and you had like this exploded drone. You figured everything out. All of the stuff with all the special flight operations certificate, all of the hoops you had to jump through. You figured it all out behind the scenes, and then you presented this nice package. And the good thing about doing that is that you have all the answers. The bad thing is sometimes people go, "Why wasn't I involved?" That's some of the drawbacks of corporate America. So the flip of it is also has some pros and cons. If you get everyone involved right off the bat, well, then you can get everyone's feedback and everyone can be on the same page. The problem is when everyone's trying to be involved, sometimes the project just goes completely sideways. So it's a bit of a battle. It's great to work for a boss. I mean, I love Matthias. I don't work for Matthias anymore, but it's great to work for a Matthias type boss who is like your champion and your cheerleader, and he sees the big picture. When you're not working for that kind of boss, it's a little harder, and you gotta kind of tiptoe around things and kind of know where that line is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's got to be something about German engineers because Matthias was so German. But he was, yeah. I'll never forget, like, I've told stories about him before where he waltzed into the office, and my first impression of Matthias was like, wow, this guy's wearing a white shirt and a suit and a tie every day, and he just showed up, and, I guess there's no, sort of randomness about the fact that this is kind of what Germans do. They're to the point, they're serious, they're straightforward, they tell you what they mean, and they don't really joke. One of the jokes around Germans is like, oh, why would I even have some humor or make a joke? That's a waste of time, it's inefficient. And,
right.
and Matthias, he showed up and he was really humble and he didn't have an ego, and there was an interim supervisor for these structural and bridge side of the company, and he was doing fine, I suppose, but like Matthias knew that he had this plan to kind of like come in and be like, hey, I really know how to do things, I'm 20 years older, and he's a great poster child for sort of a career acceleration. And it's really cool that you can also have such a good experience with him as a young engineer, because I've had several engineering bosses, and I usually push the lines, and it would have been great to end up on Matthias's team, but it is what it is. Let's do a couple shout outs here, guys, and then Hamza, I'm going to pass it back over to you about how, you are a person who is interested in a lot of cool things outside of engineering, and I know you have schemes and plans and plots about how you can incorporate different things into your career. And again, you are working on a prosthetic sort of insert project on the side. You're doing all this stuff with me. We talk all about these entrepreneurs and how we can build something really cool, change the world. You work on a lot of game and things like that, like how I can get better at picking up women. We don't have to omit that from the stream if you want. But like, I'm going to pass it over to you right after we do a couple shout outs, because I'm super appreciative that there's some people in the stream. Kevin, thank you so much for being here. Been talking with you about your involvement in Discord. Kevin, we need to have a little sort of Discord team meeting between me, you, Ashton, and everybody else that's working on Discord. Ewan has been involved. Sheriff, thanks for being here. Let us know what you're trying to figure out. I'm a little lost on Discord. He says, yeah, we'll figure that out. We got about 1,000 people in the Discord. Find the links in the descriptions below if you want to join that. Do some shout outs for Rob Torres. Thank you so much for being here. Taha, thank you. Carlos, T-Town. We got Amos, who else is in here? Manny Kwan, thanks so much for being here. I got a real relationship with you now. Bone Guy, thanks for being here. DK, love you. Jay Ceballos, thanks for being here. And I feel like there was one more person, Kevin S. Yeah, of course, Manny. Really, it's like Manny Kwan, we know him. Rob Torres, know him. Sean Mazer, thanks for showing up. Yeah, Sean was saying Camosin and UBC represent. Love that. So let's see. Let's take a look at this resume really quickly. I don't know if Rob Aguilar is still here because I gave him a little bit of shout out. If he was, I was going to actually take a look at this resume, which I don't think he's here because in the chat wasn't there. But Hamza, why don't you tag along to the things that Grant and I have mentioned? We got 30. We've been really holding 30 people in here. For the 210 of you who showed up, there's 31 here in this moment. Can you please hit that like button, please, 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 because only 12 of you have. This will pop to the top of people's news feeds if you all smash the like button at the same time. Sometimes we kind of ramp up to 50 engineers in here at once. We try to hold people for as long as we can give you value. We got Grant Waldy here, who is a civil structural engineer, a professional engineer, passed the PE and a P-Eng in Canada. Two things that I have not done. And of course, as you all know, we have Hamza Wahid, the director of operations for 1% Engineers, been working with me for 4 years. Drop your questions in the chat, hit the like button, and if you want to follow the form link in the description below, we can take a look at your LinkedIn or resume profile really quickly. I didn't have time to set up the overlay, but Hamza, what plans do you have for having a fun career and making sure that your life passions and your interests and the things that you're doing outside of work can be incorporated into your career so that you don't have a boring, even though you're making a lot of money, you have a boring situation in your career and hate your job? Hamza, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I want to do is eventually, well, first get my foot in the industry in mechanical engineering once I graduate. That's step one. And then off to the side, you know, you and I have talked about what we want to do with 1%. I really think this can be bigger, much bigger in the future. And I really want to help us get to that level. And I really want to make this internship project successful. And we really think that that is the path of monetization for this community, not only for helping the community out, but also helping ourselves financially as well. And then, yeah, part of it is just learning to meet the best of the best women out there. And I'm potentially looking into going into sales engineering, but I kind of realized talking to my dad yesterday. For those of you that don't know, my dad is a mechanical engineer for Cummins.
PhD, told me that with a PhD, super smart guy. Keep going.
Right. What he basically told me was, and this is some advice for you guys out there, was if you want to do anything like in management or something business related or something like sales and engineering, don't do that when you first graduate out of college. Get the technical skills first. Why?
Yes,
because that's much harder to get. Everybody's like, yep.
It's true.
But basically the reason why he told me to do that is it's much harder to get those skills when you're older and you have more energy to do it while you're younger.
Yeah, I want to comment on this as soon as you're done, Hamza.
More depth and framework to do the business stuff later on. But yeah,
we have people at our work, and they're called business development vice presidents. They're salespeople. And if a business development vice president was an engineer first and actually did drafting and actually did design, they are so much better at their job than someone who, sold cars first. We literally had a guy who, I still work there, so I got to kind of, he wasn't an engineer. That's it.
Just
he
keep
was
names
not a
out.
professional engineer.
And it's fine. Yeah.
I still work there, Jake. So
I know, but as long as you keep names out, he's pretty much anonymous. Keep going, Grant. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. So he was a good salesman in his previous career, and he got a job working at Parsons and he didn't know anything about engineering because he wasn't an engineer. He didn't even go to engineering school. He just thought he could sell things using buzzwords. And it's easy to sell a stupid person Coca-Cola. It's hard to sell a smart person who works for the federal government who's been doing engineering for 30 years a bridge design project when you don't know the first thing about bridges. So this idea that you're going to become a salesman right out of college is crazy. But you can work for a business development guy. I mean, one of my favorite bosses, Jake, you probably remember Mark Mulvihill.
Yeah.
I was working for him when I was on an internship, but I knew I had to get those technical skills first. So it's definitely okay to work and help out and assist the sales team and the proposal writing team, but don't kid yourself. You're not going to be a salesman right outside university. Otherwise, it would be terrible. I mean, you can sell knives right outside university because there's not a lot to do with the knife, but selling a bridge is a lot more complicated. You definitely need at least 4 years of experience before you start writing proposals on bridges, for sure.
100%.
Right, because decisions in sales in the engineering world, it's not made off of emotion and I don't want to say irrationality, but basically like appealing to the emotional side of things. It's made more on logical, sound decisions, especially when you're like buying $60 million worth of stuff or something much higher than the average consumer product like this and whatnot.
Exactly. There's one coworker of ours, Jake. Remember Palmer, right? So
yeah,
Palmer's got an MBA.
I spent a Thanksgiving with Palmer's family, man.
That's
Palmer,
right. Because yeah.
I had to get adopted.
Palmer's got an MBA, and he was joking about it. He's like, I don't know where I'm going to use these 2-for-1 bridge coupons. Like you don't use coupons for bridges, and you don't have radio ads. Selling a bridge is I could do a whole video on business development and selling a bridge and how you do that. But you definitely need technical skills before you're selling a bridge, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe that's a content idea.
What's that? Content idea? Yeah, I love that. So I got a couple funny things. So look at this. Rob Torres says, whenever Hamza talks, I'm scared he's going to drop a truth/wisdom bomb. Just shocks you. Laughing face with cry eyes emoji. And by the way, Kevin, because they know, Hamza, tilt your camera down. They don't need to have so much headspace. You do this, bro. Yeah, there you go. By the way, we have a Discord server, and thank you so much, Kevin, for mentioning this, but we just hit 1,000 members in the Discord server that has only been around for, I think, 5 months. So, guys, if you're here, the 28 of you and the 240 people who have stopped by, again, smash the like button. Make sure they hit the like button because more people actually see this at the top of their newsfeed. YouTube really does a good job of prioritizing live content nowadays, and so this time at the end of the year, there's not that many people talking about engineering career advice, so make sure you hit the like button so more people can see this. And guys, we looking for more of a community to actually talk about your engineering homework, engineering major problems, or whatever you're trying to do, finding an internship, getting a full-time engineering job, then you can join our Discord server. We have over 1,000 engineers now in the Discord server. Thank you so much, Kevin, for reminding me of that. He's over there doing the hang 10 type signs. And if you want a remote internship, I don't know if you have access to it, but when we were looking last time, we had over 40 people who had applied. We were talking about capping it at 50 people. If you guys go in the description below, you will see a link for the ability to sign up for our remote internship waiting list, and we'll select you if we think that you are worth it and make the cut. This is the 1% Engineer Show, guys. You have to be a part of the, you're either aspiring to be the top 1% of engineers, or you already show the indication that you are. So if you're having trouble getting an internship in 2020 because of COVID-19, well, then you can apply to get a remote internship with 1% Engineer. So let's get over to some questions here. I don't know if Cabanez, 1999, if you're still here, let us know and we'll answer your question. T-Town, if you're still here, let me know. We'll answer your question. DK Can, if you're still here, let me know. Carlos Bravo, I think you're here. Does the workforce care what age you are when you get your engineering degree? Grant, I would love it if you, yep, I see you selecting, I see you highlighting over there in the document right now. Grant, I would love it if you could take this question because, again, you have this kind of like, I would call it, honestly, Grant, you are like an exponential growth career engineer. So, guys, by the way, when you're talking about linear growth, it's like, walk up the ladder, walk up the ladder, walk up the ladder. Exponential growth actually underperforms linear growth for a long time. And then eventually this thing just skyrockets. And, Grant didn't go right into UBC and an A-Beta accredited program, and then didn't exactly, we were working together and almost hit 30 by the time he's traveling 50 times a year. And now you're setting the world on fire. So what would you say about does Workforce care what age you get your engineering degree? Grant, take it away.
So I got two things. So there's three types of growth: linear growth, exponential growth, and step function growth. A lot of people do linear growth. So linear is just every year you're slowly building, you're doing something a little bit bigger than you're doing the year before. And almost everyone's going to fall into this category. It's pretty hard to not learn something over the course of a year. And that's a great place to be. It's totally fine to be linear. You just don't want the slope of that line to be nothing. You want to be learning something every year. Exponential growth, yes, that is something that I've done more of. You got to start with this baseline. And like you said, linear is like this, and exponential is like it has to catch up, sort of thing. And, I remember a lot of my classmates, they were getting jobs in engineering, like internships back after first year. And I was like, guys, I've never swung a hammer. Like, I need to get a job in construction first. If I'm going to be telling someone how to swing a hammer, like, I should have swung a hammer myself. So these guys were making more money than me in their internships because, they're making 20, 25 bucks an hour with good paying internships up in Canada. And I'm making like 12 bucks an hour swinging a hammer. So, I'm down here and they're taking off. But then what happens, because I have all of that actual core of experience underneath, bosses say, oh, wait a minute, you've poured concrete, you've tied rebar, you've been on site. Well, now you're going to get to go to site. And they're not going to give that to the guy that's been stuck in the office, right? So, doing linear growth is a nice, easy way to slowly build things. But doing things that are hard at the beginning and going to a technical school instead of going straight to university and taking courses on the side here that kind of set you back financially and they set you back in time, and you're feeling, man, all these people are out partying and having a good time, when am I going to take off? You eventually do take off. And Jake showed up when things were taking off. Like, we had a good time once Jake had shown up. And so that's, the second type, exponential growth. And then I'll call the third type step function, where you go and then all of a sudden, boop, like something explodes. I think we all kind of want that to happen in our lives, but a lot of times it's not going to happen. You do have to build things. Sometimes something will just take off, but you can't rely on some sort of all of a sudden I'm going to get $1 million promotion. That's not going to happen. You're probably going to get a 2 or 3% promotion, if that. In order to get those 10% promotions and those 20%, you got to do some bigger things and you got to lay the groundwork for it. So that's kind of my thoughts on exponential, linear, and step function. I'll go on to the age thing, but Hamza, Jake, did you have anything you wanted to add to that before I go on to age?
Hamza, go ahead.
By the way, all those people that you think are having fun partying and whatnot, it's a lie. They're not.
It's pretty hollow.
They're really not.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I think it's pretty hollow. I mean, you go to parties and people are they're acting like they're having fun. I mean, I'd rather study hard and get ahead when I'm younger, and then do some crazy traveling and crazy adventures, like when you're in your late 20s and your 30s. Because just going out and getting drunk every night when you're 21, yeah, cool. But like, no, it's not cool when you do it forever,
Yeah, and you're also a really good example. I hope you don't mind this, Grant, but like, I've actually never met somebody else who, Grant, you don't even drink, and I think that's really admirable about you, but you really never missed a beat. Like, when we met each other in our late 20s, you were my first friend in Vancouver and really kind of looked out for me for 4 years, and you would be there for every minute of our sort of like partying shenanigans. And you guys can there's always a way to once you've established yourself in your career, to find a way to have fun and do whatever you want, and really be able to block some other expectations and sort of lead your own life and say, no, I'm just going to do my own thing, but I'm going to go out and just kind of be nuts and do whatever I want. What was the joke you always said, Grant? Like, hey, I'm always here anyway, like the amount of energy and enthusiasm about life. Like, I don't need a drink. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I always love that about you. I've told that story about you so many times.
I had different lines. I said, I'm opinionated and a jerk when I'm sober, so I don't really need alcohol to be more opinionated. And then a classic line, you're standing there with a glass of water, and some people are like, oh, what are you drinking? I'm like, I'm drinking water. I'm still having a great time.
So many times, man. It's not even funny.
Yeah, Hamza doesn't drink either. That's a good point. Actually, both of you guys do that. That's so funny. Hamza's always out, picking up women and that sort of thing. Guys, if you, let's do a sidebar here, by the way. Both of you gentlemen here on stream right now have actually invested a whole lot of time in making sure that, you know how to talk to chicks and you're doing the right thing. And it is a really complicated thing that a lot of people, you kind of like navigate through life and nobody's teaching this. Nobody's teaching career advice. Nobody's teaching financial advice. Nobody's teaching women advice out there. And so, like, guys, if we want to talk about this in sidebar, because about, I think, 84% of this channel is male audience. So it is what it is. 87% of engineering is, but we can talk about that, guys. Here we go. Rob Torres says, good thing I'm not a party guy already. With an eye roll. Love that. Let's see. Let's see. If people say in the chat that they want a sidebar and talk about these things, we will pursue that. Otherwise, we'll get into some other questions. I don't think T-Town is here. Carlos, are you here? By the way, Rob Angelar said he was here a second ago, and if he's still here, go ahead and comment in the chat, and I'll take a look at your resume. I think it is a decent one. It looks like an engineering resume. So
while you're looking at that resume, Jake, how would I address the age question?
That's right. Age question. Go ahead, Grant. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I think the majority of people graduate from high school and then they go to university. These people who take off 5, 10, 20 years and then come back, they are an anomaly. They really are. You're sitting there in class and you're like, who's the old guy back there? You're like, it absolutely happens, right?
Yeah.
So, I remember when I was starting out, there was a guy, we called him Old Man Gord. He was 27 years old. I mean, he wasn't that old, but he had like a beard. And we were just like so blown away at Old Man Gord. And, when you graduate and you're going to be in a different role if you're in your 30s and 40s and you just graduated versus on you're 22 and you just graduated. It's going to be different. There's pros and cons. There's definite pros and cons. You might be able to get into that sales job a lot faster if you look older, because people just kind of say, oh, this guy must know what he's talking about, even though he's only got 6 months of experience. So that's kind of a little hack. I mean, I think you're more advantaged to go from high school to university and then start your career. I think you've got more advantage. But I think if you're old, I don't want to insult people, but if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s and you've gone back to university, work to your advantage. And your advantage is people are going to assume that you know what you're talking about. So therefore, you need to have a job where that's helpful. And that would be sales. So sales in engineering world. And you've already got a degree, so you can answer most of the questions. And when they give you a really hard question, you just say something like, you know what, I'm gonna have to ask Mike about that one, but I'm pretty sure we can do that. And they'll take that. They'll take that answer. So, if you're young, I think you're the most advantaged because you can make mistakes and recover from them. But if you're old, you've got some life experience under your belt as well. So doesn't matter what boat you're in, young or old, engineering can really be a good career for you.
Yeah, great. Love that. Thanks, Grant. So, Rob Aguilar, thank you so much for submitting your resume and hanging out with us while you have patiently waited for the one resume review that we're going to do tonight. I think I need to promote that a little bit more. Yeah, still, you're the only person who has submitted. Guys, if you want your resume or your LinkedIn profile reviewed, go ahead and submit it in the chat. It was an experiment. You can see it in the description below, the link to do that. So, Grant, also, I shared this resume with you and Hamza. I would really love it if you could find it. If you can't find it in your email, that's totally fine. But
got it. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you actually, you've been in corporate engineering, longer than me now, and you have accomplished some things in your career that I haven't. So I would not mind us both taking a look at this together. So first of all, I think you can probably, like, the line spacing is a little, I wish we could show this to you guys. If I had more time to have set this up in the overlays so you could see it, that was the plan. I think the line spacing can be a little bit different. The design is not bad. I really like how everything on the left and the right is designed properly. GPA is really high. That's great. Seems to be like, really quickly, Grant, what would you say is your resume sort of awareness and skill on 1 to 10? What's your confidence on reporting on resumes for engineers?
My confidence on reporting what I think about resumes?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I've hired about 12 people in my career.
So you should kick it off then.
I hire about one person a year. and I review probably about 100 resumes a year. So kind of the main thing right off the bat, don't make them more than one page. Come on. I mean, you're not, don't make them more than one page. I'm assuming we're doing this for someone who's graduated, right? Or just graduating or an internship. That's our target audience, entry level, right?
Yeah. Which this one, by the way, is only one page, but you're just talking in general, right?
Yeah. So the very first thing I look at is one page. The next thing I look at, this is great, Robert. You got your name just prominently at the top. It's interesting. You have an actual website, so I would probably Google that to see what's going on there. I'm going to Google this website, and I'm going to potentially rip it apart or say this looks awesome. So I think you put it on your resume. We are probably going to look at it. So you look at his resume.
You can see what he looks like. He's got his LinkedIn here. Robotics, automotive. Born in 1993, LA. This is great. I think just having the ambition to make this really good Squarespace website and like show this, like I already feel really confident about you as an individual. And I know, Grant, you were kind of going, but like I'm really glad that you even noticed that because I missed that at first, Grant. Continue, Grant. Yeah, thank you.
So I would say that website, having your own personal website is a fantastic idea because one of my, so for work, I'm a bridge inspector, so I'm not afraid of heights and I'm not afraid of like confined spaces. I'll tell you one thing I am afraid of. I'm afraid of someone having grantwaldy.com that isn't me, and then somebody Google, like my brother is an author as well. And his Mark Waldy, there's a different Mark Waldy that's also an author. So people go, oh, you're an author? And then they Google markwaldy.com and they find a guy who's writing stuff and like, oh, that's really weird stuff that you write, Mark. And he's like, no, that's not me. So just the idea, Robert, that you have your own website, perfect. I think as soon as you're like 16 years old, you should buy jakevoorhees.com. Like you really should. You should have it because you can use it as your website. It's simple. It's clean. It's got a photo of you. It doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be, you probably just did, Squarespace or Wix or GoDaddy. It's like $9. Make your own website. I think it's fantastic and it can grow into whatever you want it to grow into, or it can just stay nice and simple. So, I mean, I would say really good idea having your own website. The next thing I see, your name at gmail.com. That's perfect. Everyone's going to have I once saw a website, resume, the guy's email address was chickmagnet69@hotmail.com. And it's like, what do you want? Like I know that was, a funny joke back when you were like a sophomore or freshman, but like
his ego.
You need like first name, last name, maybe a couple numbers at gmail.com. So everything from the top looks great. You've prominently said GPA 3.89. Jake, you've talked about this on your show before. A GPA that's crazy high starts to kind of look like you were a bookworm and you didn't get out there. But I don't want to discourage people that got good grades. I mean, if you got good grades, that's fine.
Yeah.
What I'm going to ask this guy is, I'm going to say, so, what did you do? Like, what do you like to do in your free time? Because if somebody has a low GPA, they probably are a pretty interesting person. But you get too low and it's like, I don't want to hire someone that's an idiot. So there's kind of a sweet spot. That 3.3 is kind of like a sweet spot. When you're going higher, I'm going to ask you more questions in the interview about what you do that makes you fun to be around. Because I know you're smart. I 3.89, you're obviously smart. I want to see if you're an interesting person that I actually want to work with. And then when your GPA is lower, I'm going to start asking you technical questions. Like, is this guy a moron? Like, I can't be hiring someone who doesn't understand anything. So if you want to put GPA on there, just realize a high GPA, you're going to get a bunch of questions about how cool you are and how interesting you are. And a low GPA, you're going to get a bunch of questions about, like, are you smart? Like, why did you even put this thing on here if you don't know what you're talking about? Is there a story behind your low GPA? Which sometimes there is. I mean, sometimes people have great stories about, their dad died and they were helping out their mom and they were working 3 jobs and it took them 8 years to get their degree, but they, that's fine. That's totally fine. I want to hear the story. So I would definitely be asking Robert about his hobbies. Bachelor of Science, Associate Science, smart guy. The first paragraph tells me I'm a smart guy. That's what it says. Experience NASA Community College. Okay, I would ask questions about that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people put these acronyms that don't stand for the National Aeronautical Space Administration. So I would ask them some questions about that. If it ain't the NASA that I think it is.
It's not. It can't be, right?
If it's not this NASA right here.
Yeah.
You better have an explanation.
It can't be, right? Because it's called the NASA Community College Aerospace Scholars. And then he has NCAS. So yeah, I'm a little confused. I saw that right away.
Now, if it is NASA, super cool. Super cool. But I'm going to have questions about it. And so the way you would negate those questions is you would say what it stands for. If it stands for North American Spanish Association, if that's what it stands for, then put that. Don't try to say something that it's not, because we're going to ask you on it, right?
It's the real NASA. I just Googled it. It's the real NASA.
Okay. So
then,
I'm going to have questions about that. That's really, really cool.
That's great.
That's really cool.
Good for you, Robert. Yeah. Keep going, Grant.
Master technician, diagnose high voltage systems, assisted work. Yeah. Smart guy. I'm seeing here, smart guy, BMW service technician. Okay, practical smart guy. I'm seeing he, works on cars and stuff. Relevant coursework, C++. Now, here's the thing. I don't know what job he's applying for. So if he's applying for a civil engineer, C++ and MATLAB are pointless. So here's a tip. Don't have the same resume and send it out to your chemical, civil, structural. Don't send out the same resume to every single boss. You need to tailor your resumes because we're going to be like, yeah, that's cool. You ride horses. This isn't a job for riding horses. That might be really applicable in one job and it's not applicable in the other one. So again, I don't know what he's applying for here. If he's applying for civil engineering, AutoCAD is relevant, but relevant coursework. This guy's a mechanical engineer, is he not? I mean, he's worked master technician.
I'm pretty sure. And Robert, if you're still here in the chat, which I think you are, because I almost had to double check with you twice to make sure you were still here before we reviewed this, let us know. Please answer Grant's questions and let us know. But either way, guys, I actually was able to publicly share the resume in the chat. So if you want to take a look at what we're saying and what Grant is doing under the review, take a look. Keep going, Grant. Yeah, go ahead.
You're doing great. Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering in progress. Associate of Science in Physics in progress. Associate of Science in Math in progress.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. It's a little confusing.
Are you taking 6 degrees at once? Mechanical engineering, physics, math, engineering technology, and natural science. So I would have I'm just interested. There's obviously an explanation there.
Yeah, but also I do want to point out that, there's an explanation, but also when you paint a narrative that's confusing, right, you start to portray some level of doubt, just kind of like what Grant suggested, like, oh, if this isn't the real NASA, then we have a problem, but it was, okay,
Yeah.
And also it's like, so what I'm suspecting is going on here is that Robert is enrolled. He's currently a student at this, associate in. I think what he's doing is he's taking so many classes at one institution that he's actually eligible for all these associate degrees at once, right? That's what it seems. And he's either just lately been accepted into this Bachelor of Science, but he's doing all these things at once. And it's almost like I don't know. It's kind of like, where does it stop in terms of you trying to prove something here? Like what I want to say here is like, it reminds me of the double major dilemma. People are like, should I double major in electrical and civil engineering? It's like, no, you're not. Like, that extra degree doesn't really help you. So you don't actually look that much better by having an associate of something 4 times. What you do, physics, math, engineering, technology, and natural sciences. Just the one. Just put engineering and technology if you're going to be an engineer, right? The physics one, you can't get a career in physics unless you get your PhD. You can't get a career in math if you get a PhD. And I don't even know what a degree in natural sciences means, okay? And I'm a career advisor for the engineering realm. So yeah, Grant, continue where you left off. Thank you.
Yeah, that's, a mechanical engineer takes courses in physics and math and engineering. So just put Bachelor of Science in mechanical engineering and then expected graduation date. And we all know what that means. We all know what that means. A Bachelor of Science is a 4 or 5 year program. It's an intensive, hard program. And put the college. I will Google to see if it's a ABET accredited college. And if it is, then I know you got pretty much the same degree as me. You got it in mechanical, I got it in civil. That is one of the problems when you go to a non-accredited college. Yeah, you save money, but you can't get hired because it's like if you're not an accredited college. Like I have a degree from the University of Northern Florida. I don't know if you know this, Jake.
What?
I did a 4-day course on bridge inspection. Really, really good course. I mean, I learned a lot, and then they sent me a big, huge framed degree from the University of Northern Florida. I was like, this is a joke, right? So that's why they do ABET accredited courses, accredited universities. That's why you got to get the PE. if you really want to go places in your engineering career, in civil engineering. I know you've talked about this, Jake, how you don't really need it in other types of engineering, but definitely civil. I can't think of a civil structural engineer who's going to do anything without a PE. You need a PE for sure.
Need. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So I would just say to Robert here, it's looking great. You're obviously a smart guy. I would just clarify some of the things here. I'd drop the stuff about MATLAB, AutoCAD, and C++. Your relevant coursework is that you're getting a mechanical engineering degree. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I think the strongest thing you had there is your website. I'd make it a little bit bigger font, and I'd be interested. I would be interested in interviewing this guy if we were looking for a mechanical engineer.
Me too.
It's a good resume. I would say it's a good resume.
I want you to join our team, Robert. Honestly, I think that we can work on a project together. I think that we can help you get a job. I think we can help you get to where you're trying to go. So thanks so much. Hamza, we're about to go. So Sheriff Ayanato, sorry if I'm botching your last name, but we got 3 more resume submissions in this time where Grant Waldy, Mr. Waldy, was doing that nice resume review. So we got a couple more to take a look at. Awesome. Thank you for submitting those, guys. If you want your resume reviewed, if you want your LinkedIn profile reviewed, here's the next one that we're going to take a look at. It's a public link. I just dropped it in the chat. That is Sheriff's resume. Before we get into that, Hamza, do you have anything to add about things that I wrote down is tailoring your resume to the position that you want? I'm a civil transportation engineer who has experience in traffic and drones, and I've applied to all different types of positions. And so I probably have 5 or 6 different resumes out there in the world because you want to specifically curate your experience and your attractability to that position that you seek at the time. And then the second thing, backing up all the way to Mark Mulvihill, awesome guy, love Mark, by the way, love Mark, is you always got to have a weekend report. What did you do this weekend? What makes you exciting and cool? And nobody really wants to be friends with a super smart 3.89 GPA engineer, just like Robert, who only is a bookworm, right? So what are you doing that makes you interesting, cool, and exciting outside of engineering? Before we get over to Sheriff's resume, you guys can click on that link that I just dropped into the chat so you can actually see what we're talking about. Grant, definitely wouldn't mind if you fire that up. But before we get into that,
I'm trying to see it here. I don't see. You mean the YouTube chat?
Yeah, in the actual YouTube chat. I don't know how. Oh, I can drop it in our actual document chat.
The last one I see is Third World by Zurek Hentley. That's the last thing I see in the chat here. I think there's obviously a delay.
I think it's a 20 to 30 second delay. I also just dropped it in our Google Share document between the two of us. But before we get into that, Hamza Waheed, Mr. Waheed, guys, go ahead and hit the like button because I know a lot of you know Hamza from the Discord and other live streams. I can't believe 355 engineers have stopped by tonight, and only 26 of you have hit that like button. So please, pretty please, Grant and Hamza, can you go like this and say, please, to 1% Nation, can you hit this like button so that more people, thank you guys, so that more people can see this at the top of the news feed? Yep, please. So Hamza, do you have anything to add about, again, weekend reports, being interesting, being fun, doing things that are amplifying your personal life that also help your engineering career, or tailoring resumes? These are some of the notes that I wrote down from Mr. Waldy's awesome initial resume review. Hamza, what do you got for us?
I mean, I guess the biggest thing is like, I guess to really make you interesting is do things that are not in the status quo, but obviously don't do anything super crazy, super illegal. Like, yeah, Breaking Bad, I'm making drugs or something like that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Like for me, I guess my thing kind of like, communication. Like, yeah, I like to talk to girls and yeah, or like, maybe it's Muay Thai, which I do practice that, and you're just super into it. But I think what's more important is that like the way you talk about it and you show up with that passion for something, because so many people you meet out there, they're just dead. It's like, yeah, I don't like this, I don't like that, whatever. When you show up with you really enjoying something, and really just with that energy, that enthusiasm, that passion, it's infectious.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, thanks for that, Hamza. I want to do a couple shout outs. Zurich, thanks for being here in the chat. Manny, thanks for stopping by. We're going to review your resume, but because you're already boys with us and we're chatting with you in video meetings, we're going to get over to Sheriff's resume first, and then I think we'll jump over to yours. Markin, thanks for being here in the chat. Who else is here? Guys, you're totally able to chat with each other and sort of interact in the chat. I think the more that you guys actually chat, the more it helps the live stream and it prioritizes this in the news feed. Leo, what's up? Thanks for being here. We're going to get to some more questions.
Oh,
Grant, were you able to open up Sheriff's resume?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't realize you put it in the doc. I got it.
Oh, yeah, no, it's in the documents in the chat. I love Flint, Michigan's a little bit of a theme here tonight. So that's super cool. I hope you're trying to be a water engineer and it's fixing the Flint, Michigan problem. So just a couple things right off the bat is this PDF is 2 pages. So you have page 2 as a blank page. So that is an anomaly. I know you did not mean to do that, but that is seen from engineers as a mistake. I think the formatting can be a little bit better. You have mistakes in this formatting under experience. September 2019 to September 20 above Flint, Michigan should be spaced over. So this needs to be designed a little bit better. I think a design eye would kind of murder this a little bit. And then even like your address, it should be pushed over. Just some formatting things. I'm not sure if you're quantifying. I really like to see the quantification of engineering and your experience. For example, if you worked on something, how big was the budget? If you worked on a housing development project as an internship or for a senior design project, how many housing plots was it? How many people were on the team? And really just showing your value there. Grant, why don't you guys, if you aren't able to take a look at the resume that you're talking about, let us know in the chat. Otherwise, find the link above. It's the most recent link that I posted. Grant, do you want to take a look at Sheriff's resume right now?
Yeah. So the first thing, it's a bit of a formatting nightmare. This needs to be better formatted. So, 2 pages. I don't know why. Maybe that was a problem on our end, but
no.
If it's 1 page, it should be 1 page.
Yeah.
Crazy huge font of it's in the garbage. Like that. Like when I have to look at hundreds of resumes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This one's gone already.
You're out.
So make the formatting better.
Person looks at it for seconds.
You're laggy, Hamza.
I said the average recruiter looks at a resume for about 6 seconds.
Yeah, true.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's pretend that you've made it the formatting is all great. And you can look at various templates online to get better formatting. You want to have your name pretty big, and you want to have better formatting. So let's now just look at the content here. Always start with your name. That's fine. Objective. Everything here. Look, Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, and Western Michigan University. And major. Okay. I mean, again, the formatting just makes it hard to read what's happening here. Sorry, you just gotta see the look on my face. I'm just still confused.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's a Bachelor of Science from Western Michigan, which is in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Okay, I can look up where that is. I don't need to know where Kalamazoo is. And if you have a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering and your major is electrical engineering, yeah, wow, that's impressive. Get rid of the words that you don't need to be in here. So it's Bachelor, or use just BS in Electrical Engineering, Western Michigan University, and here's my graduation date. Just make it clean, because the less again, I'm flipping through hundreds of these things. The less words to get across the point is important here. Peer tutor, tasked with finding students with tutoring support. Okay, so you're probably pretty smart, and you work with people. That's probably a good one there. Maintenance engineering intern, and did you live in Lagos, Nigeria? That's cool. They
must be
really
from there. I think they're a Nigerian international student, and this also probably comes into like the formatting issues. Is just I find international students a little bit behind on some of the skills, like how to build a Western resume and these sort of things. And that's totally fine. Keep going, Grant.
And that's the point of this channel, right? We're trying to help. So if I were to sit here and just praise and give a bunch of compliments, that doesn't help you. So it's important that we kind of rip it apart, because you want us to rip it apart. You don't want the hiring manager to rip it apart. So your number one thing here is formatting here. I think the content is actually pretty darn good. Lagos, Nigeria, tasked with occupying. Here's an interesting thing. As a hiring manager who works for an international company, who I myself am from a different country. I'm from Canada. I now work in the United States. If you put another country on your resume, I want to know what your visa situation is, because do I have to pay $30,000 to hire you? And I ain't going to hire you. But you're in the country. Let's assume legally. So put on there, valid student visa, available for work, under this NAFTA agreement or whatever. Like, tell me, don't make me ask the question. Like, answer that you've already thought about it, that I can legally hire you. Because when I was trying to move from Parsons Canada to Parsons USA, it's one of the first things I would say I have a TN visa, I have a US bank account, I have a US social security number. I can start work tomorrow. You don't have to do any of the paperwork. You got to get these visas. You got to get the paperwork.
That thing is magic.
Exactly. Yeah. Engineers are engineers. They ain't lawyers. They don't want to do all this paperwork for you. So if you can say on your resume, which I'm assuming you have, if you're in the country legally, you should have this.
Yeah.
Don't make me ask the question. Put it right there. Valid for work. I can start work. I can work for at least X number of years. That would be a great content add to your resume. Yeah. And then additional skills, proficient in Python, ability, personal achievements and projects. Yeah, the rest is fine. So format it better. Get rid of some of the fluff where you just keep saying you got the same degree over and over again, and then have a sentence that talks about, like, I can work. I'm ready to work in the United States legally.
Yeah. Speaking of which, go ahead, Hamza. I know you have a really good value add here because your father, again, you guys are originally from Pakistan, and your dad has a PhD in mechanical engineering, and you're still working on all the things that you need in order to have the most successful 1% engineer career here in the States. So yeah, go ahead. I know you have some value add to this as well for international students.
Yeah, Grant kind of hit this on the nail. It's high-value people communicate stuff in less words and less sentences.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, as Jake puts it, you want to be as concise as possible. It's more powerful that way. And then the other thing was, for those of you that don't know, the TN visa, essentially what it is people who are in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, they can work in other countries with this visa. But typically how it's used is people from Mexico and Canada use the US job market, and they typically use that to get engineering jobs here. But not only just engineering jobs, it's really just in general skilled labor type jobs that the United States needs. And it's a great program if you have citizenship in Canada or United States, like I do, and I think you do as well, Grant. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't have citizenship yet, but I have my green card here, and because of my marriage, TN visa. I have my TN. I have my Canadian citizenship. I have my US TN visa, and I'm almost going to get my green card in the United States.
Yeah. When you met your wife, I need to meet her, but it was like, hey, baby, like, oh, you're an American? It's such an advantage to be a Canadian citizen and be like, oh yeah, marry an American, and you can kind of like waltz around the border. I'm going to make jokes about that forever. So thanks so much.
And she makes jokes about that as well. Like, with I don't want to get political, but some people get very scared about what's going to happen in this country, and she's really happy that she's got a guy that can just make her walk across the border to Canada, which did happen. I mean, when we went back there, she's got her U.S. passport, and she's, what are they going to ask me? And I flashed my Canadian passport, and I said, she's with me. And the guy said, sounds good. Didn't even look at her passport. Didn't even look at it. So if you're with the Canadian, you can get into Canada. Like, he didn't even scan it.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's great. By the way, people who are nervous about what's going on in this country are people on this live stream right now. So that's definitely a decent concern.
Andrew Mo in the house.
Andrew Mo, what up? Yeah, so guys, go ahead and check out Andrew Mo Money right now, who's in the chat. He's got a really cool YouTube channel. He teaches sort of like personal finance and investing, and also does some really cool reaction videos. I know you did that cool video doing a reaction to Joma Tech's content lately. We're going to be doing a collaboration in early 2021. Let's talk about Andrew Mo for a second. Let's talk about the energy and enthusiasm. And I really actually gave the whole team yesterday. We have a full team that works on 1% Engineer. Hamza is my number one. He's been around for 3-4 years. And we talked about you, Andrew, for like 5 minutes straight, actually, because we have a whole CRM, sort of like, CRM is a customer relationship management tool. But we keep track of all the people that we reach out to. We're constantly trying to like broker collaborations and that sort of thing. And we're usually chasing people down, okay? And it's like, come on, you want to do this or what? And we're typically the bigger channel, and it's like, why do we have to like pull hairs here to make something happen? And Andrew, you've been emailing us, and we when we were on that call, your energy and excitement and sort of your attitude and demeanor about us was awesome. We talked to some people, and they'll have like a freaking, I'm not going to name names, but they'll have like 1,000 subscribers in some little engineering channel, and it makes me feel like I have to convince them to come on the show. And it's like, beep, off, you know? It's like, God, like, I don't want to convince, I'm not going to convince you that something that is good for you and your career and your future. We're reaching out to people just trying to help them. But Andrew, I really appreciate you and just showing that, like, you want to do something with us. So guys, again, what's the lesson to 1% Nation? Is that if you are emailing that person who's a hiring manager or somebody that you met at a career fair or a conference or something, and you're just communicating that, like, this is my whole life career narrative and I want to be a part of your company, and just showing that you want to be a part of that thing, that entity, that organization, that whatever's future, they will see it and you will stand out. And Andrew, by the way, 50, 60 channels you've been talking to this year, you really too stand out as the top 3 to 5 in terms of wanting to do something with us. And we're really excited to, I think he might have left right away because he hasn't said anything else in the chat unless a bunch of people are chapping through. But honestly, Andrew, I'm so glad that you stopped by and we could sort of promote you for a second. Guys, go ahead and hit the like button. 404 people have stopped by and only 32, less than 10% of people have hit this like button. I don't know why. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to smash that like button? Honestly, it helps the chat so much. You guys don't realize, but it pushes this to the top of the news feed, because last time you guys did this, we surged from like 25 up to 32, 33 people who are sitting in here. We've been holding over about 30 to 33 people the whole night here, Grant and Hamza. I know this is really cool for you to be on here, Grant. I didn't know if it was going to be more of a boring resume and LinkedIn review sort of episode, because we've never done this before. So guys, go ahead and submit your resumes. If you want
actually quite fun.
If you, thank you for that, Hamza. And Grant's the resume pro, so this is awesome. I didn't actually realize this worked out perfectly, Grant. I didn't realize that you are hiring people and taking a look at resumes a little bit more often. But guys, if you want your resume reviewed, if you want your LinkedIn profile reviewed, then go ahead and follow the link in the description where you can fill out the really quick, simple 2-step Google form, and we can see your resume. We have one person who's waiting. Manny, I know, Manny, if you're still in the chat, then let me know and comment, and we'll do a quick little resume review for you. But honestly, we can probably skip over you because you already have such a good relationship with us. We were on a video call lately, like we're going to review your resume no matter what. So
we've also got a bunch of questions in the document.
Yeah, we've been kind of skipping through. So Carlos wanted this T-Town question. Computer engineering is a subset likely to most in demand. Is computer engineering or a subset likely to be the most in demand major for the next 20 years? Actually, no. So really quickly, let's just blast through a couple of these. So computer engineering is technically a subset of electrical engineering, which is the biggest electrical or the biggest engineering field in America. Actually, computer engineering is declining every year because it has a hardware element. There's 1.4 million jobs in software development and only about 71,000 computer hardware engineering jobs. Electrical engineering as it is over 300,000. So computer engineering to me is not the one. I mean, the difference between computer engineering and electrical engineering is like splitting hairs. I had 2 different friends at 2 different universities double major by taking like a few extra classes. So I think electrical engineering is the one, but really mechatronics. Mechatronics is the one that is going to rise into the stratosphere and become one of the bigger core engineering fields over time. Let's see here. So I don't know what the colors are. Grant's the green one. Let's do Grant and
light blue.
Oh yeah, whatever. Green, light blue. Yeah, maybe I'm color deficient. But let's get teal, aqua. Yeah, so let's do Kevin's question. Kevin is a Discord brand ambassador. Thank you so much for doing that. Kevin says, I have a question for the guest. That means you, Mr. Waldy. What do you think will happen in 2021 for stocks about the topic of a great reset, which I think we've already done here this year, by the way. We ended the longest bull run in New York Stock Exchange history, which is what we're walking into between 2008 and 2020. And by the way, as you answer this question, so here's again the question: what do you think will happen in 2021 for stocks? About the topic of the Great Reset, will it just be good or bad? I'd love for you to do a two-part answer here, Grant. Why did you get involved? Besides the stand history, people kind of know that, but again, people hang out for an average of 5 minutes and 26 seconds, and then they dip. So most people who are here right now, they weren't there for the stand explanation. But I want to hear this. Why, even if you're making so much good money, are you still at that 120? And you don't have to be transparent about salary stuff, but you're higher. I know. I publicly say that you guys have got to be making $140,000 or $150,000. I'm really proud of you to be making so much money. But on top of that, you took $40,000 this year and flipped it into $75,000 in a weird economic year. So two-part question as you answer Kevin's sort of like forecasting into the future of the markets. But like, why even do it, or what makes you want to do it, and why would engineers, being some of the smartest people on the planet, especially 1% engineers, like kind of talk about like reverse engineering, why you do it, and then also you can answer his forecasting question. So yeah, go ahead, Grant. Thank you.
Yeah, so we've already discussed the ability to pivot and the ability to diversify. You want to do that at your job. You want to draft, and you want to do a design, and you want to do various different things. You want to do that in your life as well. I mean, having the same 9-to-5 job gets you one source of income, and if you get fired, you're done. You need to have another job because you only had one source of income. People that don't have any backup plans, people that don't invest, people that don't do other things, when they lose one thing, they've lost 100% of everything. So it's the same thing. If you're a drafter and you're really good at drafting, and now we don't need drafters anymore, well, you have no other skill sets to pivot to. You didn't diversify. So within your company, you need to be diversifying so that you can pivot, so that you can grow your skill sets. But within your life, you need to be diversifying as well. So having a solid 9-to-5 job is a really good idea in North American culture, working 40 hours a week or whatever. But beyond that, saving, putting money away into stocks, you can put money into, what's called safe stocks, that are probably going to grow 3 or 4 or 5% a year. They might go down a little bit, but they're probably going to go up. You should put some stock into some scary stocks, or some things that might just go crazy. I'm not a huge proponent of Bitcoin, but there's some stocks out there that will just go from 0 to 1 million, but they'll also go from they'll stay at 0 sort of thing. So again, you don't put all your eggs in one basket either. So for me, I kind of have about 5, maybe 5 or 6 kind of sources of income. My 9-to-5 job is my main source of income, and that's what pays my rent and pays my car bills and what pays my food. But beyond that, you got to be investing in some safe stocks. You got to be investing in some scary stocks. Real estate. I made a ton of money in real estate, and you know how much money it cost me? It cost me $17,000 to get into real estate. That's a fair bit of money, but if you're saving a couple $100s a month and you do that for a decade, you can save $17,000, and then you can do a down payment on a 2-bedroom condo. You can have a roommate. You probably remember Evan. Evan was my roommate, and he was basically paying my mortgage. It was great. And then he moved out, and the value of the property went up, and then I made a killing on that property. But when the value of property go up in your city, you got to move to a different city. So that's what I did. I moved to a much cheaper city. I was in Vancouver, one of the most expensive cities in North America to live in, and made about $250,000 profit on the place.
Just about to ask you how much you made. Because what'd you buy it for? What was your buy price?
I bought it for $270, and I sold it for right around $500. And you might be like, holy crap, $200,000, you must buy a mansion. No, because everything else in Vancouver is crazy expensive. So I had to leave. And so place. I left Vancouver. Yeah, so I moved to a much more affordable city. I live in Denver now. Denver it's on the up and up as well.
Yeah, so, everybody's leaving California. They're coming to Denver and Texas. Denver
and Texas have the most amount of inflow right now out of all the states. So my wife's in real estate, and we plan on. I don't own a place here because as a new immigrant, they won't sell you a place until you establish a credit score. So, I had to slowly start building credit, but now probably by Christmas of next year, we'll have a place. and it'll probably go up in value as well. So, just rounding it out, you got to diversify at work. You got to work for different bosses. You got to have different skills. You got to diversify in your life. You got to have different sources of income. Some will take off, some won't. But if you got 4 or 5 things, at least 1 or 2 of them are probably going to go pretty well for you. So, diversification is really important. So that's the first part of your question. I'll let maybe Hamza jump in if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I was just about to call you Hamza. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess one of the things I read, and I would love your take on this, Grant, is just focusing as Warren Buffett says, put all your eggs in one basket and then watch it closely. How do you feel about that strategy?
Well, I mean, Warren Buffett puts all his eggs in Berkshire Hathaway, but then Berkshire Hathaway is diversified through a number of different companies. So if you look at the stock, when I was originally picking my stocks, I Googled, I basically looked at 3 different people. I looked at what does Warren Buffett invest in? I looked at what does Michael Burry invest in? He's the guy from the movie The Big Short that shorted the housing bubble. And then I just looked at the regular, the Dow 30, the Dow Jones 30, which represent the 30 biggest companies. And I just kind of picked a bunch of them. And I thought, well, Coca-Cola, lots of people drink Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola makes a whole bunch of other sugar. I think, Hamza, you've got a Coca-Cola product right in front of you, right? So
Minute Maid, enjoy Coke.
That's Coca-Cola, right? So if you put all of your money into Coke, you're actually down this year. Coca-Cola hasn't been doing so well because people aren't going out to ball games and things. So that's why you got to diversify. You put some money here, you put some money there. Warren Buffett has put all of his money into Berkshire stock, but Berkshire stock has diversified across multiple different industries. So diversification in life is key.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I also love the income stream example, just making sure that you're looking at being a real estate investor. Engineers make a lot of money, and so you're going to have to do something with that money. And you can start a side project that accelerates your passions and your interests. Maybe you can sell a book. That's another income stream that Grant has. It's something that a lot of people have been encouraging me to do. I could probably encapsulate all these videos and write a book about engineering career advice, and would love to do that. So I'm going to figure that out. And thanks for that value that you added, Hamza. Let's take a look at these other questions in here. So Carlos, I'm not sure if you're around here, but I want to go into civil engineering. Here we go, Grant. Looking at transportation or structures. Here we go. We can have a little structural versus transportation engineering conversation. But I'm worried about getting a mundane job where I make calls and do computer work. You're not going to make calls. A lot of people beg to do sales and BD, so you're not going to do that. And do computer worker CAD. Computer worker CAD is the thing. Wondering if others think the same. So, I'll get started with this question, Carlos. And if you're still here, make sure that we know you're still here in the chat. But engineering, guys, this is how it works. When you get started in your career, you're going to end up probably sitting at a desk for like 39 hours a week. You're going to have a Monday morning team meeting where you talk about what's going on for the week. And then you're going to be expected to go back to your desk and you're going to have your task and you're going to kind of work in a vacuum and in a silo and either do some sort of AutoCAD or drafting or modeling or data analysis or something where it's just you and you're using your computer aided whatever software or tools to amplify your work and make you better, faster, stronger and build something, progress and momentum towards the Gantt chart that is the thing that you're working on. Okay. And for people like me, this is why I left corporate engineering behind. I couldn't just sit there and just interact with my computer. This is why Grant has had the very fun career that he's had, is that he doesn't want to just sit there and design something over and over again. He wants to go and travel and go inspect bridges and write reports and communicate with clients. And for a while, I think you're still doing it this way, I'm sure, but basically like running a whole business unit. And that doesn't involve just sitting there and using the software. But in order to get into these cooler things, you either need to be working on side projects to use your engineering degree to actually accelerate your career, to do something else, or you need to be so good at what you do. Again, this is why so good they can't ignore you. Exactly, is in this set and on the front sort of page. There's only a few books, that I can stand up and have facing you guys. And this one is one. And Stan did that at Delcan and Parsons, and Grant did that with Stan. And because he really stood out, he's been able to have sort of like creative control and authority over where things are headed. But most engineers, they don't actually like wake up and they just kind of what I call exist in their career, right? They don't want to like live and thrive and take the bull by the horns and really make things what they want for their career. Grant, what would you add to that?
You know, some people work, like Jake, we worked together, but we didn't actually work together. You sat 20 feet away from me, but we didn't actually work together. And different people work for different bosses. And it's amazing to me to see people that might even sit on the same floor have a totally different 9 to 5 than someone else. And it's dependent upon the boss. You can have a boss that wants to involve you in management meetings. You might not have much to say, but he wants to at least involve you. You might have a boss that wants to involve you on the sales call. You just sit there and be quiet, but he wants to involve you. And then you might have a boss that no, I close my door, I lead, and then you guys just all sit in your cubicles and we don't involve you in anything. And if you're working for a boss like that, it's time to quit. You know, like you want to work for a boss who wants you to grow, they want to grow, and they want to take you with them. That's the kind of boss you want to work for. And it's hard to know that in an interview. I mean, in an interview, you're just trying to get a job, let's be honest. And that's why I'm a big believer in working for larger corporations straight out of university, because you will have a bunch of different bosses you can probably move around to, and you can work with different people. You know, working for a 20-person firm where one guy owns the thing, you're not going to become the boss. The guy owns the thing. I think you should do that later in your career. I don't think you should do that right out of the gate. You want to work for a larger company. I mean, Jake, you started in Chicago at Delcan, and then they said you got to go to Vancouver, right? I mean, it's basically like you had this opportunity. That's not going to happen at a small company, and that happened because you were at a larger company. So I would really encourage young people, apply to the big companies. Because then you can work for that jerk of a boss. You're going to learn a lot by what not to do. I've certainly worked for people, and I just sit there smiling, and I go, man, I am learning everything not to do. This is great. Keep going. Yeah, no, I'm going to write notes about how terrible you are. Like, and I've worked for so many bosses. I don't have to be anonymous about that. I've probably worked with close to 100 people and different clients. You know, so having a variety is the way that you can really grow your career for sure. It's always that variety.
Yeah. And you know, I love that I just wrote a big fat note here on my book, but we're just talking about communication. Hamza invests in game and pickup and how to be a better communicator in all facets in life, not to mention picking up women. But we're talking about Charisma on Command, the YouTube channel. Actually, Grant, you brought that up earlier, right before we started this stream.
Great show.
Yeah, I love that channel. Go ahead and check that out. It kind of teaches you how to, you know, I think about being in a networking situation or at a conference and deploying some of these communication tactics. But as you mentioned, what not to do and things that you're like, wow, kind of shaking your head on the inside. I'd love for you to riff off that for a second, Grant. What are some things that come right to mind of little lessons for the young engineers out there listening? What are some of those things that sort of instinctively come to mind of like, you know, what are the mistakes that you see from these people who are like, you know, older than us and just kind of going through the motions and making these mistakes? Yeah, go ahead.
Like mistakes that bosses make, and these are the type of bosses you don't want to work for?
Yeah, well, you were mentioning that like there will be these moments of communication and people who are ahead of you and being like you're taking mental notes and just kind of nodding your head and saying like, yep, this is not what I'm going to do later on. Do you have any examples or a story or something like that you can kind of riff off of for that?
Yeah, so one is I got to make this anonymous enough because I know this on the internet.
They're never going to find it, but yeah, go ahead.
Anyways, I just remember one of my very first jobs, one of my summer internships. We were at a site and we were inspecting some rebar, and we were there to inspect the rebar in the deck. And all I'm doing is I'm looking at my piece of paper and I'm just making sure the spacing is right and the size is right. That's what I'm doing. And I just happen to look over and I see that they're working on the rebar in the railing to look like the parking garage. And I look at the notes and I go, oh, they're literally putting it in upside down. Like instead of like this, they're putting it in like this. And I say to my boss, who was only a couple years older than me, but he was my boss. I said to him, yeah, they're doing the railing wrong here. Like I should tell them. And he said, no, railing inspection is tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, but they're going to do 400 feet of railing, and they're
wasting their time.
They're wasting their time. They're wasting my time. Now I have to be the jerk that comes back and says you're doing it wrong. And he had this idea of like, if it's not in writing that I'm responsible for it, and if I can point the finger at someone else, then I'm going to spend my whole career pointing my finger at someone else. And I checked in on LinkedIn the other day, and that guy is doing the same thing. It's been 10 years, and that guy has not progressed in his career at all. I know a guy that works at his company, and I've been like, hey, how are things with Bob? His name's not Bob, but how are things with Bob? Like, oh, Bob, yeah. Bob has not gotten a raise in 10 years because no one wants to work with a jerk who just always wants to pretend.
Why is he still there, though?
It's his fault.
Nobody wants to work with him.
I mean, he the one thing he does right is he's in good with the guy who would fire him. He's like on a personal level. And that's a whole thing. It's not what you know, it's who you know. So everyone else doesn't like the guy. I sure would not ever want to go back to work. Like, I worked an internship and I did not apply to go back to work there because, like, I don't want to work with a guy who's always trying to figure out whose fault it is. We're all on the same team. Like, let's all try to work together. So that was a big thing. Even like if you see the ship crashing, even though if you're not the one steering it, you're still on the ship that's crashing.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that who I think it is or no? I was about to say, it does sound like some of the moments that you used to talk about back then, where it's like, you can't, there's these moments where even though you might be the hero after you knew a mistake was there and it's kind of like your responsibility to clean up the mess and you might shine, but you overlooked this thing that is wasting effort and wasting time. And think about these situations where say someone could have been hurt, or say it would have been a much larger project loss or something like that. These can be really catastrophic events.
So Matthias used to say, really smart people try to make other people look smart. They're not trying to make themselves. They know they're smart. They're not trying to build themselves up. Like, Matthias signs his emails with Matthias. He doesn't put PhD and all his awards. I'm just Matthias. Yeah. And he goes to meetings and he presents himself intelligently, but he doesn't lead the meeting by telling everyone how smart he is. I've been at meetings where people start telling you about all their how smart they are, and then someone turns to them and says, okay, well, then what's the solution to our problem? And the guy goes, well, I don't know what the solution to the problem is. And Matthias goes, well, I'll tell you the solution to the problem. I'm not going to tell you how smart I am. I'll just tell you the solution, because that's what we want. We all just want the solution to the problem.
Yeah, this reminds me, Hamza, of what you talk about all the time, and you really are an expert at avoiding the qualification and qualifying yourself. I'd love you to riff off of what Grant just said. Go ahead with that, Hamza.
So qualification is the idea that you are impressing somebody by changing who you are fundamentally. And wrong move. It's not going to end well. So the idea in game or socializing is that the social dynamics between each person that you're conversing to matter. And if you know how to play those dynamics, you can get a favorable outcome. So one of the things that many people at a younger, especially when you're younger, you tend to do is you tend to overqualify yourself. Like, you try to justify yourself, you try to prove yourself. Yeah, I'm kind of taking this Zumba class, I really want to get back into working out and whatnot, and I'm kind of doing the Zumba class thing, but it's just so hard. It's just a low value way of communicating, and you really have to just cut that out. Yeah,
you got it. That's pretty much usually the things that you talk about with that. But yeah, you don't ever have to, if you're the smartest person in the room and you know what you're talking about, and you're not the person who has to prove that you know what you're talking about. You just kind of speak for yourself, and you allow your words, the content of what you're communicating, actually carry the weight, instead of trying to prove to yourself. I catch myself doing it when I'm in some sort of entrepreneurial conference or something, and I'll slip and I'll mention the Shark Tank thing too early, and I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I want them to ask about those things, and then really casually.
Hey, check out my Ferrari out there.
Yeah, really casually mention this thing about Shark Tank and think like what Grant did. Grant mentioned it. I barely talk about it on the stream anymore. But that's the qualification aspect versus just being you and allowing your words and your intelligence to shine. So let's get into another question here. Kevin says, if you want to be an astronaut, would it be good to major in aerospace? Depends. So there's 60, 70,000 aerospace engineers. I think
to give up. You're not going to become an astronaut.
Yeah, exactly.
Out of the world.
Yeah. So a lot of astronauts, I think, have PhDs in mechanical engineering. They almost have some sort of PhD in something, astrophysics or something. But, Kevin, I think it's a funny question. I know you're already computer science or software engineering type of avenue, but it isn't a bad thing to be aerospace, but it almost doesn't matter. There was like 5,000 or 6,000 applicants to the last class of astronauts, and they took 12. So you need some sort of a PhD in some sort of engineering, and I think if you had a PhD in aerospace engineering, that would be pretty good. But I find that it's almost, I don't want to say it's a waste of time to consider that you could potentially be an astronaut, but it's such a long shot that it's like trying to be an Olympian or something. I don't know if it's the right thing to really shoot for the stars and have such an astronomical goal or not, but I don't know. How do you, Hamza?
I have thoughts on this.
Yeah, Grant, go ahead, but I want to hear what both of you say, Grant and then Hamza, but I'm kind of torn when it comes to these, the becoming an astronaut question. I'm just it's a polarizing sort of topic.
It's out of this world.
Out of this world, yeah. But go ahead, Grant. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you have for this.
So I like big goals that along the way to that goal, you also do cool things. So I'm going to give you an example. Here's not an example of this. Playing in the NBA. Yeah. You either play in the NBA or you don't. There's no partial NBA where you make $500,000 a year, and there's a beginner NBA where you make six figures, and there's an entry level NBA where you're making you either make millions and millions of dollars in the NBA or you don't. That's the only thing. So people who put all their eggs into the basket of wanting to become an NBA player or NFL or whatever it is, and don't have any sort of backup plan, you're either zero or a million. So aerospace, I think there's things along the way that are cool to becoming an astronaut, for sure. I mean, lots of astronauts have PhDs in mechanical engineering or aerospace. A lot of them are doctors as well. A lot of them are in the military. A lot of them have really cool other jobs, and they're very accomplished in other areas. So if all you ever do is go to astronaut camp, and all you ever do is think about being in NASA, and you don't make NASA, some people get really depressed. Yeah. So I would look at what the career path is of multiple different astronauts. And you can Google this. You can just Google the current fleet of astronauts. And, if they did a bunch of neat things along the way, then those are your goals. So it's cool to set a big goal, but don't set a big goal that's like nothing. I've achieved it. Set a goal where you can actually make various steps along the way.
Have you read the book, The Winner Effect?
I've read the book Winning, but not the book The Winner Effect.
I know the book title, but I don't think I've read it. Go ahead, Hamza. Yeah, tell us about it.
The Winner Effect actually essentially talks about that. Basically, what you do is you set a smaller goal and you achieve it. Then you set a bigger goal and a bigger goal and a bigger goal. Or what naturally tends to happen is when you accomplish a series of smaller goals, you tend to become more you tend to take on more risks, and you feel really good about yourself, and that allows you to do bigger and better things. And you kind of just and I just wanted to point that out and highlight that, because that is extremely important. It's how you progress your career and how you're accomplishing these goals matters a whole lot, because if you don't do it right, you're just going to pump your body with a bunch of cortisol, and you're not going to just stick at it in the long run. It's important to have the smaller successes along the way.
Right. So outside of engineering, I set a personal fitness goal. I said one day I'm going to climb Mount Everest. I just whatever. That is the top. That is the top goal. So do you do nothing, train for Everest, and then climb Everest? Some people do that and they die. You don't that's the stupid way to climb Mount Everest. So instead, I climbed Mount Rainier. I trained for that, and I climbed Mount Rainier, and it went really well. Jake's got a look on his face.
When did you do that? Because there was a guy that I knew from Vancouver who, which one's bigger, Baker or Rainier? Baker, right?
Rainier's taller.
Okay, so I knew a guy who tried Baker and failed. And so when you said that, I was like, so guys, Mount Rainier is the mountain. When you see the Seattle skyline, it's that big gargantuan mountain to the far right of the Space Needle in Seattle. And right away, they have, so I grew up in an area where there's no mountains. You have to drive 5 hours to get into the Appalachian Range. And so it's all flat, right? Grew up right on the ocean, essentially, on the East Coast. And then you get over to Vancouver, okay? And Grant Waldy's living in Denver right now, so he's right nestled up against the mountains. And then I didn't know about these things called geographic prominence, okay? So what that is the ability for another geographic obstacle to seem bigger than everything else and be seen from other areas. So the bigger a mountain is, the further away you can see it. And it becomes a big deal because unless you think the Earth is flat, then geographic prominence is a big deal because the further you are away from it, the larger it actually has to be because of the curvature of the Earth for it to actually look big. And Mount Rainier and Baker, they look humongous. So I'm really impressed. What's the elevation of Rainier, Grant?
So Baker is 10,000 feet,
Uh-huh.
and Rainier is 14,000 feet.
Which is exactly half of the elevation of Everest, right? Isn't Everest like 28 or 29?
29,029. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, and Rainier is like the training ground for Everest because it has the same thing where they put down the ladders and like you walk across the ladders and there's big caverns and you walk across.
Dude, what? How did I not know about this? Okay, can we talk about this then for a second? Can we riff off this? So why would you, as a guy who I already know wants to explore and hike and does all these things and travel, and I've told a lot of people, you remember how we applied to do that Google Maps backpacking where you put that 60-pound Google Maps? Guys, there's teams of people who apply to do the off-roading version of Google Maps where you could hike with this 60-pound apparatus and you put it on your back. And then you go and you do this uncharted, off-the-grid trail hiking aspect of Google Maps. But I had no idea. Why haven't I seen photos of this? Are there no photos or whatever? So, but hold off with that.
No, it's on my Facebook. It's on my. I'll send you some links after that.
I've been buried behind a YouTube rock or something. But Grant, so let's talk about this. Let's riff on this for a second. Again, let's combine engineering careers and making yourself interesting and making yourself a better person and sort of like pushing your personal development, but also like what makes you want to do something where like people die climbing Rainier, right? They have to. People must die.
200 people have died climbing Rainier.
Holy crap. So let's talk about that. What makes you want to do these crazy things, and what type of encouragement would you communicate for 1% Nation out there who of the 550 people who've been on this stream here tonight, and there's probably going to be several thousand who rewatch this, but what are the reasons why you do these crazy things, and how does it make you a better, smarter, faster engineer? Really a true 1% engineer. This is nuts that you actually did this. Let's talk about that for a second. Yeah.
So I can tie it ties back to this how do you pronounce his name? Kaviki Penchalev?
His name is Kevin. He's actually a Discord brand ambassador. So yeah, his name is Kevin. He's a really cool young engineer. And yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So it ties back to Kevin's question. You know, if I want to become an astronaut, it's the same sort of thing. If you want to set a big goal, have little goals along the way, which are also really cool. So, you know, if it's in business and you want to be the CEO, guess what? You don't go from drafter to CEO. You know, you got to be the president. Before that, a senior vice president. Before that, a president. Everything has this kind of either linear or exponential growth to it. And you can apply that outside of work as well. So when it comes to climbing mountains, I said, well, let's just put the goal of Everest, but let's not do the step function. Let's not do nothing, try Everest, because that's how people die. You know, let's start with Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier's killer. I mean, literally 200 people have died on it. I went with a group of people, and there was 16 of us that started out from the parking lot, and then we had a number of different professional guides with us. And as you're hiking up the mountain, various people are dropping off, and they're saying, "I can't do this anymore," and they're turning around. And so you start with a whole bunch of guides because a guide has to take the guy back down.
Oh, wow!
Because you don't go down by yourself.
You always die on descent too, right?
The descent is definitely the more dangerous part for sure. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So we started off with 16. I remember we lost one guy on day one. You know, on day two, we lost 3 or 4 more people. This one guy, we're sitting around before we're going and we're telling what our jobs are. And he said his job is a motivational speaker, and he only does things that he's good at. He now wants to do things that he's not good at to know what failure feels like. I love the idea. I don't know if I would do something that would kill you. So he did not train at all.
What? What an idiot.
And he made it about 4 hours in, and we're carrying heavy backpacks and it's high elevation, so there's not. I don't know if you ever been to Denver, but you can't even breathe when you get up to 1 mile, and we're a few miles up in the air here. And I remember we just got a few miles in, and he said, "My eyeballs hurt. I have every part of my body hurts. I am about to die. We got to go down right now." And so he definitely learned what failure feels like. I don't suggest doing this. I don't suggest not training for a crazy hard thing. So anyways, as we went on, more and more people dropped out. And I think of the 8 people, of the 16 people that started, I believe 8 of us made it to the summit. And then, so I made it to the summit, and I'm standing there, I'm feeling pretty good. I remember 2 people, they gave up 100 feet from the summit. 100 feet from the summit, they gave up.
Wait, let's talk about that. How can you?
They just pushed it. They would have made it.
Like what? Wait. How can that be? Can you expand on that? Like, it's really hard for me to put my brain around that. Like, what?
It is very hard for you. So the analogy I'll use, when you're in the gym and you're bench pressing, and when you get to 9 and your goal was 10, and you go, and your buddy's like, "Come on, it's just 1 more." Your mind is telling your arms to do it, but you can't do it. So that's the difference between 9 and 10. This was the difference between 14,300 feet and 14,400 feet. They were. I remember watching them, and they're just like, "My legs won't move. I can't make my. I'm sending the signal to my leg, and it's not moving." I've never experienced this. And basically what the guides did is they just kind of laid them down on the ground, and they just kind of starfish in the snow, and they just wait there for a couple hours for like their bodies to heal. And then they had to pick them back up, and then they could slowly walk downhill, but they could not walk uphill. I saw this. I saw this happen to 2 people.
It's so hard for me to even believe that. Like, and I understand the ruthless nature of mountaineering, that when somebody can't physically support themselves, you're not supposed to help them, because chances are something really bad is going to happen to you. By the way, guys, a part of innovation is don't be defensive, don't have farmer mentality, and be willing to destroy. And there's aspects within like wagon trail theory, or if you look at what an omega wolf is in a wolf pack, and then finally mountaineering is the final example of this. But sometimes, like, if your friend that you've trained with for years, okay, you've built up, you did Everest, you did all these mountains, and then you go to K2, okay, the most deadly mountain in the world that kills, I think it's 25% of the people who've tried it have
1 out of 4,
have died. That if this person gets too tired or runs out of oxygen or makes a mistake and gets a little injured, you're not supposed to help them, because if you use energy and specifically oxygen, you will probably perish as well. So you have you have to be willing to destroy. In mountaineering, I did not know this, by the way. Simon Duga told me about K2 and the K2 disaster, and I did not know anything about mountaineering and have any respect or appreciation before it. He told me about that, and then I fell in love with the mental aspect and the types of crazy, insane people who now I know that you are too, Grant, you crazy guy. Like, what is required to be a mountaineer? Which I guess technically, like Rainier, like that's mountaineering, right? Are you a mountaineer now, bro? Like,
yeah, I mean, Rainier is kind of considered the entry. If you do Rainier, then that's how you do on Rainier dictates how you do on other mountains. So we got to at the 100-foot from the summit mark, these 2 guys, a guy and a girl, they both collapsed, and that's totally right. The guides don't help them. The guides can't, because the guides are tired too.
They will die.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yes, absolutely. And so we made it to the summit, and I'm standing there, and I'm thinking to myself, the summit is not the goal. The summit is not 100%. The summit isn't even halfway. The summit is like 40. It's a substantial goal, getting to the summit, but you can't in your mind think that the summit is 100%. No. It's like 40.
You got to make it down.
Once you're coming down, once the oxygen, it's a weird feeling, because you go down really fast. You go down way faster than you go up. It's just like, how when people are scuba diving, if they come up too fast, they get like the bends and they get like oxygen in their blood. It's the same sort of thing. You can't summit fast, but you can descent really fast. And it's a weird feeling to go from thin oxygen to thick oxygen. Literally, the air starts to feel like soup. You just go, oh, wow, this feels like you can feel the oxygen in your lungs.
Wow.
And as we're going down, once you're going down, then you tell yourself you're at about the halfway point. And then you get down, you're about the 75% point. But the parking lot is not 100% either. because the people who get back to the parking lot and then collapse, well, they've reached their goal. They've reached their limit. They can't push it any farther. They've absolutely collapsed. So I made it back to the parking lot, and the guide said to me, he was evaluating everyone, and he was like, okay, Rainier is not your limit. You need to push it a little bit farther.
Wow, that's
but
so
for everyone
amazing.
else, he's just like, everyone's all collapsed. So
Yeah.
you need to, this is your limit, right?
Maybe a robot should be used as a guide.
They will in the future, maybe.
I mean, they will in the future for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true.
From Rainier, I did a couple other. I did Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa.
I didn't know you did Kili. Yeah, I want to do Kili. So I got invited to a trip that got canceled because of COVID, and I didn't even start training. But yeah, love to talk about that. And before we go too far about Kili or any of the other mountains, or what other mountains have you done, Grant? You can just list them off. But then they have specific question for you.
The notable ones that I've summited was Rainier and Kili, and then Aconcagua, which most people don't even know. They've never even heard of, but it is the tallest mountain in the world outside of the Mount Everest range. So Mount Everest and K2 and a whole bunch of other mountains that are all right beside each other. It's in South America.
Yeah, is that the one that is, it's the tallest of three hemispheres? It's in Chile, right?
It's kind of on the border between Argentina and Chile. It's fully in Argentina, but it's basically in Chile. So I attempted that one in January, February of this year. And that one, I made it about 2 hours away from the summit, which again, you're like, why don't you just push yourself? Well, 2 hours is a long time, and it was minus 30 degrees, and my eyeball froze, and I lost vision in my left eye temporarily because my eyeball froze. It was minus 30. Yeah.
Dude, you're nuts, bro. Like,
so my guide said to me, he said, if you turn around now, you can go back to the tent and warm up, and you'll get your vision back. If you don't turn around now, you absolutely will go blind in one eye.
Yeah.
And you probably won't make the summit because you're going to start stumbling around, and even more worse things will happen.
You could die.
It's not worth it. And I've talked about that in my book. I've said, you got to know when to cash out. And I was a couple hours away from the summit. I said, you know what? I'm at 21,900 feet. It's time to turn around. I'm just going to turn around. This is good enough. So
you're crazy, man.
I might go back one day, but for now, I'm staying on solid ground for a little bit.
You're crazy, dude. So I have a story about that same mountain, by the way. And we do have a question. So Jeremy Galloway, thanks so much for answering questions and being in the live stream. Guys, hit the like button. Only 41 of you, even though almost 600 people have been here tonight. It's so funny how, you fluctuate between 23 to 30. I think we peaked at 38 people here tonight. But it always seems like there's just the same people hanging out with us. But 583 people have stopped by here tonight, Grant. So thanks again for being here. I'm going to link your website again. I made you and Hamza moderators for the chat. So let's give that a test, Grant. Let's see if you can link your website in the chat right now. But a question for you. I love the soupy oxygen analogy that you made, because Jeremy Galloway's question was, which of any of you which would you deem more taxing and strenuous in the human body, climbing a mountain with no supplemental oxygen or free diving insane depth? So I don't know if you have any personal experience with free diving, but you did make that analogy, so maybe you have a connection there, Grant. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing about free diving is that when you screw up, you're really like there's no room for error in free diving. I'm not going to get into that. That's crazy. So what I like about mountaineering, I like traveling. I like meeting cool people. You don't meet boring people on the mountain. Every single person on that mountain has a lot of interesting things to say. You go through multiple countries. Kilimanjaro, you go through Tanzania. You probably have a layover in Kenya. We did a safari afterwards. We saw all of the big five. It was amazing.
Yeah. Which park did you go through?
We went through 3. We went to the Serengeti Park. There was a volcano park we went to. And we did a jungle, we did a volcano, and then we did the stereotypical kind of Lion King, where you see the lions and the zebras and the giraffes. So, free diving, I would say that's extremely hard on your body, and I don't think it's very interesting. But if you like it, if that floats your boat, go for it.
It's also crazy. It gives me so much more respect for Casey Neistat. I watched this video about it. It said something like this time I almost died or this one time, but essentially him and a friend a couple years ago, they summited that big mountain, the tallest mountain in the world outside of the Himalayas, and they were doing it. They set themselves up so they would arrive this time of the year. It was like 2 weeks before Christmas, 3 years ago, and they were summiting on Christmas Day. Okay, and they did a decent bit of training, but on that mountain, you don't need insane mountaineering gear and this sort of thing. Allegedly, I would, have you to confirm or deny that, Grant.
That's right.
But they what they did was they had a turnaround time. Okay, so you have these base camps and you have to push and climatize and this sort of thing. At least on the bigger mountains, I know that's the case. But what they did was they hit their turnaround time. And it was the day they were supposed to summit, and they pushed like 2 or 3 hours past their turnaround time, and they blacked out. They don't have any memory. They ended up summiting, but they don't have any memories of it. And he looks back at that moment. Casey Neistat, the YouTuber who essentially pioneered daily vlogging and co-founded Beam with the Tumblr founder and became famous from this, but like he looks back on that moment like, wow, I'm so lucky that I should probably be dead, because they made all these big risks and did stupid things, and I guess I didn't realize how big of an achievement and how serious that truly was until after talking to you. But I appreciate that.
I almost died. I almost died 4 times on the mountain.
4 times. Let's go over it really quickly in bullet points, then we'll get back to some engineering stuff because we're getting a little bit of a live stream fall off, but still got 20 people in here. But let's go over the 4 times really quickly, and then we'll get back into some engineering questions. We got some resumes to do. Manny, if you're still here, let me know in the chat. I don't think we did Carlos's resume. Let's get back into some resumes. But Manny, if you're still here in the chat, let us know. Carlos, if you're still here in the chat, let us know. And then Jeremy Galloway, you've been here in a lot of live streams. I want to prioritize some of your questions if you have one. And then Siddharth as well. Rob Torres is here. Rob, you got a really good question in here as well. But yeah, Grant, let's hear the times you almost died, and then we'll push over to Hamza for some sort of add to that, and then we'll get back into some engineering stuff. Go ahead, Grant. Let's do a lightning round of the times you almost died. Yeah.
So number 1, a pizza box sized rock flew past us, and if it doesn't hit you, you're fine. If it does hit you, you're really messed up. Number 2, my eye froze and I lost vision, and you're totally fine here, but you're kind of walking on a knife edge. So if you stumble, you're dead. So the vision sort of thing, I'm pretty scared there. Number 3, I got back to my tent and my heart rate didn't go down. My heart rate was about 170 for about 24 hours.
What?
So that's what happens.
Why would that be? Why did that happen?
Because one, you push yourself, and 2, the low oxygen. So the lower pressure, the higher up you go, the higher your heart rate goes. And so I have a strong heart. I can sustain 170, but this is why people die on Everest, because they're older and they're not at 80% of their max. They're at 120% of their max.
Wow.
And they're sitting there and they're like, I'm not even pushing myself. Why is I'm going bub, 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 bub? It's because of the low oxygen. And then number 4, on the way down, this big herd of donkeys, which they use to move up all of the gear, came charging towards us, and we all had to would have been run over by a donkey, which weighs a lot, right? I mean, so I don't know if death is the right word, but 4 times I came close to really messing myself up.
No, I'll give you permission to use the word death there. Yeah. Hamza, do you have, somebody whose family is from Pakistan, that's where K2 is. Is Everest in Pakistan or, yeah?
Everest is on the border of Nepal and China, Tibet.
Yeah. I have to imagine you have an opinion on, again, let's try to blend this into engineering and talk about pushing yourself to achieve big things and setting yourself up to be a leader. I think of the guy, who was it, Larry Ellison or Barry? It's Larry Ellison, right? The guy who founded Oracle, who's always done these crazy monumentous achievements. And there's got to be an engineering lesson here. Hamza, do you have any sort of, comment on this or something to say before we move into some more of these resumes and questions?
Yeah, I would say it's short-term satisfaction versus long-term satisfaction. A lot of times, you go through certain things and it's I don't want to do this. This sucks. I hate myself. I want to quit. But the reality is, if you quit right then and there, in the long run, you're not going to feel good about yourself. So the truth is, you need to stick it out and grind it out. And when you do that in the long run, you'll feel much better about yourself and your self-esteem will be much higher because part of building self-esteem is really just keeping your promises that you told yourself to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all I would have to say to that.
Yeah, that's great. And real quickly, Grant, final little micro question. So, Grant, I know you to be one of the most healthiest guys I've ever met. You've never taken a sip of alcohol. You've never done any drugs. You've never smoked a cigarette. You don't even drink coffee. Have you ever had caffeine besides soda?
Besides soda, yeah.
You work out, you got a good mindset. Do you find that this is a commonality between other mountaineers? Like, is this what is required to push your body physically to these extents where you're literally on the brink of death? Like, I want to ask you about that.
So when I climbed Aconcagua, one of the guys who went, he was a Ironman triathlete, and he had the Ironman triathlon tattoo on his calf. And he had it on his calf, and he'd been to Hawaii a couple times. And he had a resting heart rate of about 42 beats per minute, which is incredibly low.
That's really low.
And, we were just all amazed at his triathloning. And then the guide paused and he said, there's not a lot of swimming, biking, and running on this mountain.
Yeah.
You kind of were training for the wrong thing. So about 4 days in, I remember we just got to one of the camps and he said, I don't have it in me anymore. And he paid about $5,000 to get a helicopter to pick him up and take him off the mountain.
Wow, that's
so
crazy.
So being in good shape, yes, but you need to be in specific shape. You need to train by hiking. You need to go hiking with a backpack on, with your boots on, and there's mental aspects of it. I could do an entire video of what's needed for training.
We should.
But the people who train by playing floor hockey and then think they're going to be good at basketball, it's like those are different sports. So in order to be good at mountaineering, you need to train as a mountaineer. So I see the people who make it to the summit. They live similar types of lives. They train the same way that I train. And then the people who think that they can do pickup basketball and that count, it's a different thing. They're better basketball players, but they're not good mountaineers. I can hear my wife laughing in the background.
Yeah, I love that. So Jeremy Galloway, thanks again for being on another live stream. I'm going to make sure that your question for Grant about mountaineering gets asked before we move on. But he says, first of all, Jeremy says, I believe Grant is just always looking for his next near life situation. Maybe that's true. Good assessment, Jeremy. But specifically, this question is, I have one more question for Grant about mountaineering. Did you use nitrogen supplements for the climb? I bet you didn't. You would have already said it, but let's hear it. Yeah, you didn't. Of course not. It's not even your style.
I mean, if you can make it up on unassisted oxygen, then you don't have to worry about your regulator freezing. If you have that regulator that you're relying on, you are then acclimatizing to that regulator, and then when the regulator freezes, you suffocate to death.
You're dead.
So
wow.
There's a certain number of feet that you're allowed to do per day, and there's a certain number of feet you're allowed to do for every 3 days. And I don't want to get into the science of it, but we stuck to that exact thing, and that kept us feeling good. And if you're going to do it on a regulator, you better hope your regulator doesn't break on you, because then you literally stand there and you suffocate to death, and there's nothing anyone around you can do.
That is insane. We're getting more questions about mountaineering, by the way. We're about to start the 1% Mountaineering Show. So Carlos Bravo says, might as well, before we move on, let's just hit this. Carlos says, do you have to practice certain breathing techniques to keep CO2 and O2 levels at optimum rates? And again, let's treat it like a lightning round. Let's do like a 30-second response, and then we'll move past this. But yeah, go ahead, Grant. I don't know this stuff, so yeah, take it away.
There is a specific type of breathing. It's called pressure breathing. And what you do, you visualize that there's a birthday cake on the ground and you're trying to blow out the candles. So you blow like you're trying to blow. It's on the ground, Jake. Yes.
Wow. Really?
Blow as hard as you can, and then you nothing out, and then you suck it all back in, and you just do that over and over again. So I'll demonstrate it. You go.
Wow. And you're constantly doing that?
I already get a little lightheaded just doing that because I'm not, up at crazy elevation. You do that for 8 hours a day when you're hiking.
So, dude, like, I have to say, I want to riff on this. So, like, after you achieve these big mountains and you put yourself in these insane situations, like, regular life stuff just must be boring. Like, how do you get back to just being a normal guy after, for example, you did Rainier? Like, and are you going to go back and do the one in the Andes because, like, you were 2 hours away? Like, so it's a two-part question. And again, let's lightning round this and be really fast. But, like, you know, is regular life boring after you push yourself to 21,000 feet? And then, like, are you going to go back and really get the gold medal for the biggest mountain outside of the Himalayas?
So the first question is no. I mean, if you diversify things and you have a bunch of different things, you can find just as interest in reading a book about poetry as watching a movie, as hanging out with your buddies, as climbing a mountain. You know, like these people that their whole life revolves around, like, I have to be amazing at this thing, then they're really sad outside of that. So I have lots of other things, and listening to music, no. I mean, I try to find enjoyment in lots of little things.
Wow, yeah. And then are you going to go back and try to summit the Andes?
We're thinking, my wife wants me to climb the Matterhorn.
Which is the one in the Alps.
Switzerland.
Yeah. I was just reading about that.
This. It's
It's nuts. So what's the elevation of that one?
That one, I think it's only about 10,000 feet. It's 14,000. It is a 14er.
But it's really dangerous, or what makes it alluring, even though it's only 2/3 of the height of the Andes?
So the thing that's cool about the Matterhorn is that you're roped in the whole time, and you're kind of like scrambling climbing. So you're safe because you're roped in and you're clicked in, but it's very, very steep. So it's kind of like climbing a ladder, like a 45 to like 50 to 60 degree ladder, and you get this amazing view of the rest of Switzerland. And what's nice about that, it's only about 5 or 6 days. Whereas the one I did down in South America was 30 days, and that's just a long time to be away.
You're inspiring Carlos Bravo, who says that's the type of civil engineer I want to be, working in construction sector during the day and climbing mountains by night. First of all, I think you might die if you climb mountains by night, but I understand your analogy, Carlos. And then Jeremy, another joking question, and maybe Grant, you know about this, maybe some asshole has done it. I bet you someone has, but it says, I wonder if anyone has smoked a cigarette. You can smoke a lot of different things, especially nowadays, but of all things, a cigarette on the summit of Everest. LOL, completely joking, but it would trip me out to sea. Has anyone ever, think about it. There could be
I can answer this. This is a definite answer.
Yeah, let's hear it. Someone must have done it, right?
So back in the 1960s and 70s, when mountaineering was done by a very elite group of people who had very crappy gear and were doing stuff with like sheepskin and things, it was a sign of being tough to be able to smoke cigarettes while you were mountaineering. So absolutely, Edmund Hillary, and the Sherpas, they were absolutely smoking. Nowadays, no, absolutely not. But it's not that. Let's put it this way: we are so soft in 2020. Doors open for us. I remember I went to a grocery store and the door didn't open, and I just kind of stood there. Like, what do I do now? So back in the 1970s, people were all day long. Their life was a struggle. They were tougher. They were way tougher back in the 1960s and 70s. Whereas now we have to train to be tough. We have to go to a gym to lift things up. People lifted things up in their day-to-day lives. People could smoke back in the day because they were tougher. We're a bunch of babies now.
Good point. Yeah, this is great. So Carlos Bravo, if you're still in the chat, thanks for all that, Grant. What a really cool. Oh, Joliet, Illinois. That's great. I used to live in Schaumburg, or worked in Schaumburg, and that's the whole Delcan thing, how I met Grant. So that's really cool that you're in the same area, sort of like Chicagoland. To Hamza, as I kind of share, we're going to do another resume. Carlos Bravo, I want to make sure that you're in the chat. Yep, hey, you're here. We're going to do your resume right now. And then Manny, let's see, Manny Kwan, you still in the chat. Jeremy, ask any other engineering-related questions because I really appreciate how you're always in the chat. Send me an email, hello@jakevoorhees.com. Maybe Hamza can link it into the chat to make sure that you get it, because anybody who sort of spends a little bit more time on the live streams, I want to see if you maybe want to be a Discord brand ambassador or do a project with us, or like the Rob Torreses and the Manny Kwans and Kevin's in this chat. There's a whole bunch of people. Yeah, Rob Torres. Yeah, I'm really glad. That's the way. Ask your question again in the live stream. If we missed your question, guys, ask it again. I'm really glad you just did that, Rob. Thank you so much. But I'm gonna share Carlos Bravo. I'm gonna share your resume with Grant and Hamza, and then we're gonna take a look at this and do a little bit of a review here and keep on moving forward. So Grant, you'll see an email just in a couple seconds, but right away I'm going to jump right into this. So shout out to Chicagoland. I think, again, formatting is always something I look at right away. We got on the left side, a designer would skewer the crap out of this. You have, I don't know, you got to push everything over to the same side. Hey, let me actually make sure that this can be shared with everybody so that you see it. But I'm going to make sure that everybody can see it. I'm going to drop it into the chat as a public link. 1 second here, guys. It's so hard to think and do anything else at the same time, because that's technically impossible. Your brain can only focus on one cognitive thing at a time. So guys, this is the resume that we're reviewing. We're doing some engineering resume and LinkedIn reviews here. It's getting a little bit later in the day, so people are dropping off. But again, we've had 633 people stop by the stream tonight. 18 of you are here with us. Go ahead and hit that like button one more time. It's hard for me to believe that 1% Nation, I really wish that we could find a way to incentivize just hitting that like button a little bit more. 634 people and only 43 likes, because if everybody showed up and smashed the like button, this would actually appear at the top of news feeds. So thanks again. I want to give another shout out to Grant Waldy. You probably can link your website one more time now that you're an admin, but I really appreciated having you in the chat here. I think we're going to do a grand finale with questions and reviews and probably wrap this. Let's make a goal, try to close this down by 10:30. We've been streaming now. When we hit 10:30, that'll be 2 hours and 40 minutes. It is kind of a marathon. I feel a little bit more rejuvenated, talking about people who have walked up to 21,000 feet. And also, Grant, thank you so much. It's been a little bit relieving. Usually me and Hamza are over here talking for 2 hours plus straight, and it is, no pun intended, but some sort of climatizing marathon. But it's really been nice to have you on the stream. Grant, I guess you have that resume open. But
I do,
guys,
yeah.
But guys, go ahead and hit the like button. And a couple shout outs here. If you're looking for an internship, in 2021, go ahead and follow the links below. We have a 1% Engineer internship program where I think probably by this point there were 42 people who had been signed up a couple days ago. It's probably pretty close to 50. We talked about closing it down at 50. So if you want an internship in 2021 with us, then go ahead and follow those links and sign up. You can apply, also join our Discord server. Kevin, thanks again for being here.
I just lost.
I'm not sure if you're still here. Everything is fine. I mean, everything is good on my end. We good? I think we're good. The stream is still going. I'm not sure. But anyway, you still here, Grant? You're still on the stream. I can still hear you. You're fine. But guys, if you want to join the Discord server among 1,000 other young engineers, Grant's connection must have dropped out. He'll be back in a second, I am sure. But if you want to join our Discord server, follow the links below. Also, I got to let him in. Let's see here. And you're back. What's up, Grant? Awesome. So do a little positioning switcheroo. Guys, also follow our IG page. I think we're over 500 or over 400 followers for the 1% Engineer Instagram. So go ahead and follow that. We're going to get over to one final review, and then I think we'll probably end up clipping this by 10:30. I'm glad you were able to jump back in, Grant. That was great. You were like, oh, what happened? I don't know. And I was I don't know, Grant. You seem fine to me. And then you were gone. Now you're back. So let's go ahead and look at Carlos Bravo's resume really quickly. And if you need a second to bring it up, that's totally fine, Grant.
I got it here, yeah.
But again, let's lightning around this. We got about 14 to 20 minutes together here. I'm going to go ahead and just do some quick commentary. So awesome GPA, 3.5. I think this does need a little bit of formatting work. I don't really see much quantification of your engineering internship. You say Chem Tech Services. Did I drop this resume into the chat? I don't think so, but while I'm trying to figure that out, Grant, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you see with this resume?
It's just a little bit of formatting issues. The margins are not equal on either side here. That's fine. I like how you bolded civil engineering right off the bat. I can see, because your eyes get drawn to that, right? So that's a good idea here. Education, that all looks good to me. STEM scholar, Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. I might probably ask you a little bit more about that and what you're doing there, because it sounds like a frat, but I'd just be interested about what you were doing there. AutoCAD, SolidWorks, MATLAB, MicroStation. Yeah, those are all the programs that we would probably use. Construction engineering, surveying, that's some solid experience that you have. I like how you say what you've done. Inspected paving projects, ensuring job was done in a timely and safe manner. You actually say what you've done. That's good. That's really good to have there. Assisted as rodman in property, home, and topographical surveys. you've got some actual in the field experience, design and creative, use chem tech services. Yeah, I think just a little bit of formatting issues. In all honesty, this is some really good content, is what I would say.
Really good. If you had to give sort of like looking at that resume as we move into Manny's resume, just core summary again. Maybe even you can talk about some of the again, people are like coming and going all the time. Just the core resume tips as you summarize your review of Carlos's resume.
I would just the only thing, just a little bit of formatting. This is a good resume, and I would recommend this person for an interview. Yeah, this sounds good to me.
Awesome. Sheriff is still here. I think Nigerian engineer that we were reviewing the resume for earlier. So let's see here. 1 second. Hey, I'm still on the stream, so see you soon. So here we're gonna do Manny Kwan's resume here. Boom. So this is the next resume. So Manny, nearest and dearest to my heart here. Manny, thank you so much for being on another stream. We are going to take a look at your resume. But again, you guys, if you want to stand out to somebody, an employer, a person who, you're hoping can provide you with an opportunity, like a professor or someone from a job fair or a conference or something like this, just show up and show your enthusiasm and want to be a part of that community. Again, you see some names here. Kevin, you got Rob Torres, we got Manny, we have Jeremy Galloway, who again is in the chat here asking some awesome questions about engineering or about mountaineering. But these are ways that you can stand out and become a part of somebody's radar perspective. And you've done a really good job, the people who we've mentioned here tonight. So Grant, did I actually share Manny? I don't think I actually shared Manny's resume with you specifically. It's in the chat as well. Maybe I'm going to share it with you specifically in your email. So just sent that right now. But then there is a link in the chat. Jeremy Galloway, thank you so much.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice. I would put a space before your phone number because I was like, is your phone number 1562? I couldn't. The tiny little formatting thing there. I would just fix up the phone number a little bit. Mechanical engineering internship. Yep. No, that's pretty standard. 1 page. This is good. It's a pretty nice formatting. A lot of words here. So I would maybe, you got 4 bullet points, 3 bullet. I would maybe cut out maybe 1 or 2 just so the font is a little bit bigger. Having tiny font is just a little bit harder to read. So education, Bachelor of Science, Mechanical Engineering, California State University. This is perfect. Bachelor of Science, Mechanical Engineering, where you're going, and when you're going to graduate. Yeah, that's nice and succinct. So the other people who we reviewed when it was really kind of confusing, this is how you do it. That looks good.
Yeah, this formatting is good. Do you think the text is too small? He almost is like cramped.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, I was saying there's a little too much going on here.
Okay, yeah.
If you make the font bigger, obviously, because you filled the whole page, I can even see you've made the margins bigger so that you could really fill the page. Just cut out some stuff. I mean, you can cut out some things here and there.
Yeah. And you have like a really big sort of footer margin that I think you can crush into, and you can even drop the font size of your email and phone number. Here, so we actually specifically know Manny's biggest challenge. Maybe we can riff off this. If you, I don't know if you have any other sort of instinctive things to mention about this resume, but Manny has a particular challenge that I think a lot of 1% Nation can relate to, because I could relate to this. But yeah, any other resume mentions before we move into that?
I just get rid of relative courses. I mean, we know you're getting a Bachelor of Science, so you don't need to say multivariable calculus. Yeah, we know that. So that's a whole paragraph you can get rid of to free up some more space.
Yeah, drop that. Yeah, I love that. So Manny, just like me, is walking into a career with an engineering degree. I struggled with calculus and had to retake it. I had to withdraw from computer science, and it was like a W or a D or something, not a D, letter grade D, but had to actually like pause on that and take it with another professor. But he's struggled with GPA in engineering. Okay, a lot of people talk about this: how to get a job, how to get an internship, how to get experience, how to get an opportunity with a poor GPA in college. And I honestly I don't know if I'm going to regret this one day, but I think rounding GPA, if you have a 2.8 and just putting 3.0 and things like this, or if you have a 2.2 and putting something else and just kind of rounding up to beat the computer algorithm, I'm kind of an advocate of that, but he kind of struggles with not necessarily having an outstanding, you said earlier today, Grant, 3.3 is the sweet spot. Hamza, you're a student right now. Let's go kick it over to Hamza first, but what's the GPA attitude that we want to communicate to the listeners for resumes? Hamza, let's have you first, and then Grant, you can comment on GPA as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like based off of what we say is like GPA matters up to a point. Like what I've looked at most internship applications and whatnot, like they're demanding a 3.0 basically. That's like the bare minimum. And I'm not saying go for the bare minimum and only go shoot for a 3.0. I would say try to get it as much as you can, but like don't spend too much time optimizing for a 4.0.
Yeah,
that's a waste of your time, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Grant, go ahead.
I mean, you'll drive yourself nuts to try to get 100% in every course. You'll lose your health and your sleep and your friends. I mean,
perfection is the lowest standard, according to Tony Robbins, as he puts it.
Right. So, I mean, first of all, like we have 35 job openings right now in the Denver office. So and they're of a whole bunch of different types of engineering. We've got, I think, 75 openings in the New York office. The company I work for, Parsons, this is our best year. 2020 is the best year in our history. We're really doing really well.
Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, when it comes to recessions and when it comes to things going south, the government does a very poor job at giving money to restaurants. They don't know how to do it properly. They give it to the boss of the restaurant, who a lot of times doesn't decipher it to, like the waiters and waitresses. He just takes it himself. I just saw a story the other day where a guy took $350,000 PPP loan and he went to Las Vegas and he just gambled it himself. I mean, it's the government does a very poor job at propping up the service industry. If you know what the government does a very good job at, infrastructure and engineering. This is actually the one thing I would say the government does well is giving money to engineering companies. So, I would say engineering is kind of recession proof, and in a recession, engineering tends to grow. So we're doing really well. Go to the Parsons website and click on careers. You'll probably find something here. I've never seen a GPA entry thing in any of our job applications. I don't really care about that. I mean, I want to know, do you have the skills to kind of get yourself in? But let's be honest, the things you learn in school, it's a base, but you do something totally different once you start working, and you kind of start at square one. I mean, that's Jake. The things you were doing.
My dad told me you know nothing when you graduate college.
Yeah, you have this baseline, and you have this underlying theory of things, and then your boss says, "Here's how we actually do it." So you're kind of starting from square one. And this idea of trying to say, "Oh, look at me, I got really high grades." It's like, yeah, but like, what did you lose there? So I'll tell you my personal story about my grades. I got really good grades in the courses that were related to what I wanted to do for work. And I got poor grades in the courses that had nothing to do with structural engineering. Yeah. So I wanted to be a structural engineer probably in about my fourth or fifth year of university. I said, structural is what I want to do. So I'm going to really put my time and effort. And you know how they have like the required textbook and they have the recommended? I bought all the recommended ones as well, because I was going to actually use these when I graduate. And then when it comes to the courses where it's like, I'm not going to do this, I just want to pass. D's get degrees in some of these courses. So I remember in my final semester, I got 100% in my matrix structural engineering course, and I got a D in another course. I got 50% on the nose in another course that had nothing to do with what I was going to do. And, you know, I still graduated with a good GPA, but I never got asked what my GPA was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, I can't believe you, Grant Wody, got a D in a class.
One.
Oh, my
I got
goodness.
one.
Which class? Which class?
It was in environmental remediation. It was
yeah.
something that's not structural engineering. And it's like, well, I have this really hard structural engineering course, and I put all my time and effort into this because that's the one thing I'm going to do with my career. And this other course is very important if that's what you're going to do with your career. But it's not what I was going to do. In fact, I only went to the first lecture of the year, and then I just read the textbook. And when I showed up to the exam, you have to put like your professor's name. And I had no idea what the professor's name was. So I literally put up my hand to, you know, one of the people who's handing out the test. And I said, excuse me, do you know who the professor is for this course? And the guy looked at me and he said, I'm the professor. And I paused and I said, do you know what your name is? Because I don't know what your name is. And he called me a jerk and he walked away. And the people around me said, I don't know what his name is either. Because no one, you know, if you're not into this very specific frame of engineering, then you don't want to take this course.
Such a jerk, Grant.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's do a legitimate lightning round and clear up the final questions. Thank you, 1% Nation, for being here, for almost 700 of you checking out this stream. So, Rob Torres, I'm so sorry. I really appreciate that you have dropped in this question 3 times. And again, you know that we're going to answer your questions because you have a really good relationship with us. We're doing our project together. But great question. Hamza, I want to kick this over to you about attitude for somebody who is going to be walking into the professional engineering world in the near future. He says, specifically, I've been reading, it's been said that SpaceX, for example, requires engineers to work for 60 plus hours a week, including weekends. And by the way, I did a video about this looking at the Starlink project, and they said has the ability to work nights and weekends in the actual job description. They're trying to be totally transparent and upfront about it. What's y'all's take on that? Would you want a more balanced life? Hamza, what's your perspective on something like this?
I think that, you know, if you look at the most successful people in the world, you have to be willing to go all out at certain points in your life.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to work those 18-hour days. It sucks, but that's just the reality, and it is what it is. And, you know, part of working at these bigger companies, these like posh, higher end companies, so to speak, if that's how you want to put it, like SpaceX, is Elon Musk does demand his people to work 60 hours a week sometimes. I mean, he puts in even more, like almost unhealthily to that point. And I would say, like, if you're young, you can do that. But when you get older, it becomes more difficult. So, and it also comes down to, like, what do you want as well? Do you want to do that? Because a lot of people just think, oh, SpaceX, Tesla, yeah, I want to do this. Rah, renewable energy. But no, like, you have to look at everything, and you have to look at the data properly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, Jeremy Galloway, I love your addition to this comment. Send me an email, please. Seriously, you're really impressing me showing up to all these live streams and adding value. It says, you know, Rob, how bad do you want to work at SpaceX or with the company changing the world? Question mark. How much is your time worth in relation to bettering humanity? So it comes down to, again, how bad do you want that? How much do you want to work for a company who is really pushing the needle forward? And this is a reason why they don't just hire regular engineers at SpaceX. You really have to be a 1% engineer, and you have to be in that upper echelon and top bracket among your peers. And this is what it is. You know, the cream rises to the top, and companies like SpaceX, that is what they want. So guys, drop your final questions in the chat. We're going to clip this live stream in just a couple minutes. Jeremy Galloway says about resumes. What about black text? Oh yeah, I'm so happy that you guys drop in your questions for a second time. Grant, this is a question for you about color in resumes. It says, what about black text versus some type of colorful text? Not talking about crazy amounts of color, all black, or maybe some color to stand out. Grant, what do you have for this?
Yeah, just a little bit of a dark blue looks nice. Just a little accents here and there. You don't want a Technicolor rainbow, but a little bit like a nice border can sometimes make things stand out. We're visual people, and so just making your resume stand out a little bit more is one way of doing it. Every single one of these resumes is Microsoft Word done in, Times New Roman. No one here had like this glossy, amazing looking thing, which does exist in some industries. That's impressive in some. I don't necessarily know if you would need that in civil engineering, but you would get noticed for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys Google best resume templates or best resumes for engineers, I really like that one that has the blue margin on the left side with some bracket of information, and it just kind of pops a little bit and stands out. And like Hamza said earlier, the average amount of time a recruiter, even in engineering, who looks at your resume is 6 seconds before they make a snapshot decision about you to put you in the pile to actually be reviewed further, or it's garbage. And even tonight, we've seen some resumes that had some formatting off or some information that was a little bit off. This is the harsh world, and you might get bumped to the side or not. So make sure that you
Jake, can I send you my resume from like 4 or 5 years ago here?
Yeah, I'd love that. AAA, thanks for being here. I know you've been trying to get a question in here. Do you know Saudi Aramco? It's my dream job to get there. I've heard about that company. Isn't it a
largest company?
It's an oil company.
It's an oil company. Yeah. It's my dream job to get there. So just a couple tips, guys, for how to get into your dream job. What you need to do is find ways to interface with, network with, and build relationships with people who are already there. And once you do that, you can conduct either a virtual or a face-to-face informational interview, and you can ask about them. You can impress them. You're kind of courting and dating each other, and you can garner that relationship over time. And then when you actually need an opportunity, you can ask for it, and this person has a relationship with you, and they will potentially give you the benefit of the doubt because they already believe in you and like you and things like that. Grant, this is awesome. So we'll see your resume. Do we want to talk about this on stream, or is this a?
You can do whatever you want. I mean, it'd be great if you had a thing where we could show it.
Yeah. Well,
we might want to do it next time.
This is so funny. What we'll do is what we've been doing for everybody else. So I will find a way to share, if I can download this, open in Google Docs. Here, I'll open it in Google Docs. I'll share the Google Docs link in the stream, and then we can talk about maybe like your self analysis of this resume. So, oh man, yeah, this resume is definitely not. Oh, you have this graph in the bottom. This is so funny, and then you have a second page, and it's.
Can you just share screens? Doesn't share screens
I
work?
can, but here's the thing, I'd have to like play with the stream overlay midstream, and it's something that makes me nervous. It's because of the power outage, I didn't have enough time to prep. It's something that I think we'll do this again next week, and we'll do some better, and then we'll. What I want to do is have us much smaller and down below, and the resume actually in the stream, and it kind of just, especially at this point in the stream, it makes me a little too nervous to do it, but I actually have this link here available in just 1 second. Anyone with the link, copy link, boom. So here you go, guys. Go ahead and take a look at Mr. Waldy's, resume from, here's the link in the chat now. This is his resume from, what did you say, 5-6 years ago?
I don't know how many years ago this was. This is an older resume.
Yep. So right away, what I'm seeing is some weird formatting, some color, arguably not weird formatting, probably horrible formatting. And then this graph cracks me up about workload. So yeah, maybe you go ahead and do some self-analysis on this resume, Grant. Go ahead. And then, we'll take if you have any final lightning round questions, we're going to crush those. Clayton, I see a question. Manny, awesome. AAA, we'll get to your question. But Grant, go ahead. And then Clayton, your question's coming up next.
I mean, I guess my thinking here is colorful, stand out, be something different. I've got some icons at the top here, my phone number, my email, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, say the various different things that I've worked on. I really just wanted to be a totally unique resume and do something totally different, because everyone else's resume always kind of looks the same. So, shoot for the moon and you might crash, but, just do something a little bit unique for sure.
Yeah. So do you look back at this and there's parts of it that you appreciate and there's parts of it that make you cringe, or what's your kind of overall summary on, like self-awareness, looking right in the mirror here? I think Google Documents destroyed the formatting. I feel like there's things going on in this resume that just aren't. Oh no, I shared the wrong thing. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is actually the thing that I'm looking at is not the same. It dropped out the stuff at the top. I actually don't know how to share this like on the spot and get the PDF.
What did you share?
Well, click the link in the chat and you'll see that it is like a destroyed version of your resume. Yeah, so this is actually the way we'll figure out how to share this properly.
I never see your links in the chat, by the way, Jake. Ever.
Really?
Yeah, I've never seen them. I've
Oh,
only ever
maybe it's
seen them in
blocking
Google
my
Docs.
own links. Oh, it is, because when I look at my own chat, it drops them in. We'll figure this out, guys, for how to properly do. This is our first stab at doing resume reviews and LinkedIn profile reviews. So what we really want to be doing, yeah, you're right, Grant, they're not in the chat. I drop them in and it shows it on my end, but then it actually doesn't show those little links, which is ridiculous. I don't really know why, but anyway.
So I sent you just a PDF.
Yeah, but I don't know how to quickly share it on stream. What I think we'll do, Grant, is we'll do this again, resume review next Wednesday, and we'll kick it off with yours, and we'll talk about that, and we'll get right into it. So, guys, go ahead and drop your final questions in the chat. I know we talked about actually clipping this at 10:30. Loves to be a part of 1% Engineer. Thank you, Jeremy. Tuga, thank you. Always learn a ton from your content. How can I give back to the community? Hey, thanks so much for that. You can join our Discord server, and you can email me at hello@jakevoories.com if you want to join the team or work on a standalone project or become a Discord brand ambassador. I'm sure Kevin or Ashton or any one of our people who's helping with Discord would love that. Things like this. Rob Torres, thanks so much. Yep, I really appreciate it. Zurich, thanks so much. Try sharing them via Discord. Good point. I really appreciate that. Any final questions, guys? I think AAA, do you know? Yeah, Saudi Aramco, that's where that question came from. Don't hire students that don't have less than a 3.5 GPA. I guess if they're the biggest company in the world, Grant?
Yes, yeah.
Wow. So is that by revenue? Must be.
It's by partially inflated market cap, because there's a lot of billionaires in Saudi Arabia that can invest in them.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
There's a lot of garbage that goes on there. But anyways,
yeah.
Clayton Poss says, "What do you think the future of power plant engineering is?" Grant, do you have anything to say about this?
I have no comment on power plant engineering.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, most power plants are coal-fired power plants, and we really do need to see an uptick. And solar is gonna thanks, Manny. Solar is gonna eventually take over.
In the future.
Yeah, go ahead, Hamza. Give us your perspective on this.
Yeah, and one of the things that might end up happening is, at this point, Earth is a very tiny dot in this whole universe, but then we have all this real estate and land out there in the world. And one of the things on the moon is this resource called helium-3 that, if you do certain processes to it, can create a bunch of abundant energy. So there's a company out there called Moon Express where they're literally mining the moon for precious rocks like honeymoon. They're taking that literally, mining for energy and all this stuff essentially. And yeah, that could be a possibility as well. But either through that or solar energy and whatnot, energy will eventually become abundant.
Yeah, especially when you look at technologies like Dyson Sphere, Dyson Swarm type things. So that's good. Not seeing a whole lot of grand finale questions here. Grant, Waldy, thank you so much for being in the stream. It's really good to reconnect with you over the last couple, weeks and months of you showing up. I think it was that live stream when I was outside and it went from illuminated down to almost pitch black, and I'm holding a light on my face. It was really good that you came and hung out with us that night, and you've been here on lots and lots of streams and trying to sell some of your books. So let's get you. Yeah, thanks, Grant. Hamza, as always, thanks for being on this stream, Grant. We're going to do this bridge sort of engineering collaboration, feature you on an actual 1% Engineer Show episode. 1% Nation, final things. Go ahead and sign up for the internship if you haven't already. Can't get an internship in 2020 because of COVID-19? Well, then what you need is the 1% Engineer remote internship that you can sign up for in the links below. Join our Discord server with over 1,000 engineers in our online community. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram. We have about 400 people on that, trying to get to 500 for the end of the year. If I wave my magic wand, maybe it'll just happen. And thanks again for being here. Make sure you like this stream so that people see it as a rebroadcast, and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss out on videos in the future. We're going to be releasing another one, I think, on Saturday. I'm traveling tomorrow, so that's not going to be happening. Again, Grant, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a particularly long stream, probably probably the longest one of 2020 of all the ones we've done. Hamza Waheed, again, thank you so much for your 4 years of investment in the community and myself. I have really enjoyed you being on the team, and I can't wait to see. Thanks, man. I can't wait to see what we do next year. Grant, I'm going to pass it over to you for maybe a final words of wisdom, sort of a lightning blitz thing for the 16 people who are still here. What tips do you have to have a rock star career like you, Grant? Go ahead. What do you got for us?
Real simple. Read my book.
Yeah, love it. Go ahead and check that out. I'll make sure that gets linked in the chat and in the rebroadcast. Grant, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for being here, Hamza. All of you, Rob, Manny, Kevin, let's see here, AAA, Zurich. Who else do we got here? Clayton, Jeremy Galloway. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are rock stars. 1% Nation, love you so much. And we'll see you again in another video. Bye-bye. Be safe out there in the snow if you're on the East Coast. Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Hamza.